Chapter 22. The arrow heavily slammed into the skeleton captain's chest, piercing into its armor. The skeleton captain lost its balance and stumbled back a few steps. At that moment, two large blood-red fireballs landed. Bang! Bang! Two massive sounds rang out as the blood-red fireballs exploded, causing sparks to fly everywhere and sending all of the skeleton warriors flying. The skeleton captain was the same. The skeleton captain looked quite wretched, and just as it was about to get up, another blood-red fireball landed on its body. Zhao Fu had also cast a hell fireball. Bang! An explosion sounded out, and the skeleton captain, who was just about to stand up, was blown back another 3 or 4 meters. The other skeleton warriors also stood up. Without the skeleton captain leading them, they once again gathered together and instinctively rushed over. "Archers, fire your arrows to suppress it," Zhao Fu once again yelled. The archers continuously shot out arrows, successfully buying some time for Old Log to cast his magic. 2 blood-red orbs condensed, and they once again flew out, landing among the skeleton warriors and sending them flying. On the other side, the skeleton captain slowly stood up, but a normal fireball landed on its body, sending it flying another 3 or 4 meters. Seeing that they had separated the skeleton captain from the other skeleton warriors, Zhao Fu immediately said, "Bai Qi, I'll leave the skeleton captain to you." Bai Qi nodded and quickly ran towards the skeleton captain. As for the remaining 11 skeleton warriors, they were held back by Zhao Fu's group. Whenever 3 or 4 of them gathered together, fireballs would fly out, and shield bearers and infantrymen would rush up to attack. Zhao Fu's side was quickly brought under control. On Bai Qi's side, because of Zhao Fu and Old Log's attacks, the skeleton captain's strength was starting to run out, and it was gradually falling into a disadvantageous position. However, the skeleton captain was still quite powerful, and it gripped its saber with both hands in ferocious attacks, sending out a large wave of saber light. Seeing that his side was under control, Zhao Fu turned to look at Bai Qi's side and once again drew his ironwood bow, releasing a rock-crushing arrow that condensed traces of a mysterious yellow aura. The skeleton captain turned around and slashed its blade at Bai Qi's waist. At that moment, an arrow hit the skeleton captain's waist, breaking it in half. Bai Qi took this opportunity to stab his sword into the skeleton captain's head, causing the blue spirit flame within the skeleton captain's head to flicker before becoming smaller and smaller and finally disappearing. The skeleton captain's body fell apart, turning into a pile of bones as it fell to the ground. Bai Qi quickly turned and went over to Zhao Fu's side, once again facing off against 3 skeleton soldiers. Zhao Fu gave the order to launch an all-out attack, and he and Old Log used fireballs to kill the 11 skeleton warriors. This battle lasted for half an hour, and everyone had expended a lot of energy. This was especially so for Zhao Fu and Old Log, who were both mentally exhausted. Following this, they started to collect the spoils of war. The 11 skeleton warriors dropped 11 blue-grade weapons and 8 refined martial souls. Zhao Fu came to the skeleton captain's pile of bones and looked at its large saber. 100 Vanguard Saber. Grade, Silver Stats, Strength +3, Constitution +3. Description: an exquisite gold-grade weapon that has been corroded by time and has become an ordinary silver-grade weapon. Zhao Fu was delighted to see a silver-grade weapon, and he looked at the skeleton captain's armor. Lapis armor. Grade, Blue. Stats, Constitution +1. Description: a gold-grade armor that has been corroded by the wind for over 10,000 years and has become a blue-grade armor. After obtaining this armor, Zhao Fu gave it to Bai Qi for now. The lapis armor's defense was definitely greater than leather armor, but it was only for now. After going back, he would need to repair it a bit. As for the blue leather armor that Bai Qi had taken off from, Zhao Fu put it on. Apart from these 2 pieces of equipment, the skeleton captain also dropped an orb of light that gave off a faint light. Within the orb of light, there seemed to be a soldier wearing armor and holding a large saber. Zhao Fu took the orb and looked at it. Soldier's soul. Description: a powerful soul left behind by a soldier that can be fused into a city heart to become a guardian spirit. It can also be fused into weapons to strengthen them. Note, 100 soldier souls can fuse into a general armament. A lord with 24 general armaments can fuse 1,000 soldier souls to fuse into a king armament. Zhao Fu was pleasantly surprised and felt that it was quite powerful. However, he was quite curious about what a general armament was and what a king armament was. However, he could only put it away for now. After resting for a while, they recovered their stamina and spirit before continuing onwards. Following this, they did not encounter any troublesome enemies. They killed 12 skeleton infantrymen and 5 skeleton archers, and they dropped 13 refined martial souls. Zhao Fu had thought that they would be able to continue on like this, but the situation changed because of the skeleton shield bearers. Right now, Zhao Fu was relying on the fact that he had a defensive profession, while the other side did not have a defensive profession. However, now that the other side also had a defensive profession, the situation had become quite bad. This time, Zhao Fu encountered 5 skeleton infantrymen, 3 skeleton archers, and 5 skeleton shield bearers. In terms of difficulty, it was even more difficult than the 10 or so skeleton shield bearers. Zhao Fu once again shot out arrows, but all of them were blocked by the shield bearers. It was not easy to rush up, and the shield bearers could only fight to a stalemate. Right now, the only advantage they had was numbers, as well as Zhao Fu and Old Logue's explosive skills. The skeletons also got into formation. The skeleton shield bearers raised their shields, the skeleton infantrymen hid behind them, and the skeleton archers drew their bows and knocked their arrows. Right now, they had no choice but to use their numbers advantage to fight head-on. On Zhao Fu's side, the shield bearers stood at the front, the infantrymen hid behind them, and the archers drew their bows. The two sides clashed. Zhao Fu's archers mainly suppressed the other side's skeleton archers, because Zhao Fu's side was filled with living creatures. If they were hit, they would be injured or even killed, unlike this group of undead. Right now, Zhao Fu could only focus on the battle. He wanted to use fireballs to attack the skeleton archers, but magic skills didn't have a very long range, so he could only take advantage of this opportunity to attack. However, the situation was still in Zhao Fu's favor. Zhao Fu's side had 2 shield bearers, and they used their shields to smash at the skeleton shield bearers, wanting to break them apart. However, even though the skeleton shield bearers had become undead, they knew that only by working together could they display their strength. As such, even though Zhao Fu's shield bearers were forcefully smashing at them, they still tightly surrounded each other. Chapter 23. Bai Qi's body suddenly blurred as he circled to the left side of the skeleton shield bearer and unleashed a Qi slash with all of his strength. His sword exploded out with a massive amount of sword light, and he slashed out a sword light that was nearly 3 meters long. Boom! With a single strike, Bai Qi sent 3 skeleton shield bearers and the skeleton infantrymen behind them flying, completely shattering the skeleton shield bearers' defenses. Zhao Fu hurriedly yelled, "Hurry! Split them up!" The shield bearers and infantrymen immediately obeyed and split into 2 groups, separating the fallen skeletons from the ones that hadn't fallen. Now that the skeletons' defenses had been shattered, they immediately fell into chaos. Zhao Fu's soldiers also started to attack, and now that both sides were locked in battle, Zhao Fu could not use fireballs. As such, he could only use rock-crushing arrows. While one of the skeleton shield bearers wasn't paying attention, the arrow pierced into its head. Crack! The blue spirit flame within the skeleton shield bearer's head disappeared, and its entire body fell apart, causing its bones and shield to fall to the ground. It was quite difficult to hit a skeleton's head because it was easy to dodge. This time, Zhao Fu had only succeeded because the skeleton shield bearer wasn't paying attention. However, before he could rejoice, arg! A pained cry sounded out as one of the skeleton archers took a few arrows and shot out an arrow, which hit one of the infantrymen on Zhao Fu's side in the shoulder. Damn it! Zhao Fu inwardly cursed before yelling. Archers, suppress them. Bai Qi, be careful. Bai Qi nodded, and while the archers were suppressing him, he raised his sword and rushed towards the skeleton archers. Zhao Fu ordered the injured infantrymen to retreat, and Zhao Fu also used his bow and arrow to attack. Luckily, he had used the refined martial soul last time, which allowed him to become more proficient with archery. Although each arrow wasn't as effective as the previous one, it was still able to interrupt the skeleton soldiers' attacks and create an opportunity for his subordinates to attack. When the skeleton soldiers saw that the situation was becoming more and more disadvantageous, they suddenly went berserk and started to attack. In the end, Zhao Fu's side paid the price of 3 injured players to kill all of the skeletons. Bai Qi's side was also dealt with, and an archer's soldier soul dropped. This time, out of the 13 skeletons, there were 9 refined martial souls, 13 blue-grade weapons, and 3 white-grade weapons. Altogether, he had obtained 1 piece of silver-grade equipment, 55 pieces of blue-grade equipment, 10 pieces of white-grade equipment, 38 refined martial souls, and 2 soldier souls. In total, he had obtained 405 gold coins, or 4,050,000 copper coins. Zhao Fu didn't know how much soldier souls were worth, and he had never seen them on the forums before. They were incredibly rare, and it wasn't easy for Zhao Fu to value them. As such, he didn't include them in his total harvest. However, when he looked at the 4 injured people, he inwardly sighed. It seemed that they would have to stop here for today, and he would have to go back and adjust their strategy. If they continued like this, they would only be adding more and more casualties. Zhao Fu walked over to the infantryman who had been shot in the shoulder and asked caringly, "Are you all right?" The infantryman hurriedly shook his head, indicating that he was fine. Seeing this, Zhao Fu said, "I'll help you pull out the arrow." Hearing this, the infantryman said in a panic, "Your Majesty, I'll go to Dr. Zhang first." "I'd better wait for Dr. Zhang. How can I trouble your highness?" "All right, that's enough." Zhao Fu bitterly smiled. Looking at these soldiers who respected and loved him so much, he felt quite guilty that he had injured them. Zhao Fu tore open the infantryman's shoulder and cut the arrow in half before pulling it out. At the same time, blood quickly flowed out from the wound, and Zhao Fu hurriedly used a blood-healing skill. This was his first time using it, and he didn't know how effective it would be. Zhao Fu placed his palm against the wound, and a blood-red light shined from Zhao Fu's palm. The infantryman's wound immediately stopped bleeding, and the wound quickly healed. Even though the blood-healing skill didn't completely heal the wound, it was able to heal more than half of it. The infantryman was so moved that tears welled up in his eyes. He had never thought that the incredibly noble majesty, who would become the future ruler of Qin City, would personally heal him. Seeing this, everyone became even more loyal to Zhao Fu. Following this, Zhao Fu and his soldiers returned to the surface and had the injured treated. At the same time, they sent the weapons to blacksmith Wang Dao to be repaired. Zhao Fu and Bai Qi summarized their experiences from today's battle and discussed their shortcomings. They also discussed their opponent's weaknesses and started to come up with new tactics. At that moment, someone came to report that a bandit village had been discovered 10 kilometers south of Qin Village. Hearing this, Zhao Fu and Bai Qi could only end their discussion and start to gather their troops. "Your Majesty, I want to go as well." Lu Mei felt quite excited when she heard that there was going to be a battle, so she ran over to Zhao Fu and said. Zhao Fu looked at her and asked, "Will you listen to my orders?" Lu Mei hurriedly nodded, indicating that she would listen to Zhao Fu's orders. Seeing this, Zhao Fu warned her, "If you don't listen to my orders on the battlefield and something goes wrong, I'll kill you." Hearing this, Lu Mei knew what kind of person Zhao Fu was and that he would do as he said. However, she felt quite displeased. She was a great beauty, so why did this fellow keep threatening to kill her? "Forget it, I won't bicker with him. I've long since grown tired of staying in Qin Village, and it's so boring. I definitely have to go when we attack the bandit village." Lu Mei thought to herself, so she once again nodded, indicating that she understood. Zhao Fu did not say anything else. With Lu Mei's skills, she would be an expert at killing enemies on the battlefield. After traveling for more than an hour, Zhao Fu's group arrived at the bandit village. This bandit village was next to a small stream, and it was not very big. Its defenses were quite weak, and there were roughly 150 people. What surprised Zhao Fu was that 30 or so of them were wearing metal armor. Since they were wearing so much metal armor, it meant that they definitely had armor blueprints. This made Zhao Fu feel quite delighted. Right now, Zhao Fu had 300 or so soldiers, 200 of whom were soldiers, 60 of whom were goblins, and 40 of whom were gnome crossbowmen. Even though they would definitely win if they charged up, they would suffer heavy casualties. This was evidently not Zhao Fu's style of battle. As such, they could only carefully search for the village's weaknesses. Perhaps they could use the method that they had used on the Wild Wolf village. Even though it was quite despicable, it was incredibly effective. Chapter 24. Zhao Fu first had to find enough food for the 150 people. This bandit village would most likely split into groups like other Outlander villages to hunt. Soon, 40 people walked out of the village, split into 4 groups, and left in different directions. Seeing this, Zhao Fu immediately split into 3 teams to kill them while he led his people to follow one of the teams. Zhao Fu looked at the group of people swaggering about with their sabers in the distance and called Bai Qi to his side and told him about his strategy. Bai Qi looked quite awkward as he said, "Your Majesty, I might not be able to do that." Hearing this, Zhao Fu turned to look at Lu Mei. "What?" Facing Zhao Fu's gaze, Lu Mei trembled. She immediately felt a trace of a bad feeling and asked. However, after Zhao Fu gave her a simple explanation, a look of delight appeared on Lu Mei's face, and she led Bai Qi and the other 3 to openly walk towards the group of bandits. "Hey, all of you, stop right there." Lu Mei led Bai Qi and the other 3 to chase after the bandits as she yelled. Hearing this voice, the group of bandits turned around and saw a bewitching beauty in a red dress. There were only 5 people on the other side, while they had 10 people on their side, so they did not have to be afraid at all. They even lewdly smiled as they asked, "Beauty, what business do you have with us? Do you want to play with us?" Hearing this, Lu Mei bewitchingly smiled, and in the next second, she swung her whip towards the bandits. Bai Qi and the others rushed up, and the battle quickly concluded. Just Bai Qi alone had killed 4 people, and the other 3 had also killed 1 person each. Lu Mei left 3 people alive on her side. At that moment, Lu Mei lightly swung her whip and flirtatiously smiled as she asked, "What were you talking about before?" The 3 bandits knelt on the ground and begged, "Heroine, we know we were in the wrong. We know we were wrong. Please let us off this time." Arg! Just as the bandit finished speaking, a whip landed on his body, and Lu Mei cried out in dissatisfaction, "Who's a heroine? I'm your grandaunt." The bandits quickly nodded and said, "Yes, grandaunt. That's more like it. Where did you come from?" Lu Mei asked with a smile. Hearing her words, the 3 bandits hurriedly replied, "The 3 of us are from the ferocious tiger village. Our leader is Wang Meng. We have more than 200 brothers in the village." The 3 bandits said that they were from the ferocious tiger village. They also told Lu Mei about their leader and how many people there were in the village. They thought that they could scare Lu Mei into letting them go. However, another whip ruthlessly lashed the 3 of them, and the roving bandits cried out in pain. Another wound appeared on the 3 of them. Lu Mei coldly snorted and said, "The ferocious tiger village is nothing. That guy called Wang Meng sounds like a good-for-nothing." The 3rd rogue bandit also succumbed to Lu Mei's tyranny and quickly nodded in agreement. Pa pa pa. After whipping the 3 of them a few more times, Lu Mei felt quite dissatisfied and lightly harumphed as she said, "I don't know what you 3 are talking about." The 3 bandits cried out in pain and hurriedly shouted, "Wang Meng is a coward. Wang Meng's men are no good. Wang Meng is a eunuch." Ha! Lu Mei continuously laughed as her large breasts shook. She once again whipped the 3 bandits and said coquettishly, "I still didn't hear you." The 3 bandits could only endure the pain and curse at Wang Meng again. However, Lu Mei continued to laugh as she continued to whip the 3 bandits. Zhao Fu, who was hiding by the side, realized that Lu Mei had some sort of fetish. However, she was only following his orders, so he didn't say anything. All right, go back and tell that Wang Meng to come over and lick my shoes, or I'll cripple him. After whipping the 3 bandits, Lu Mei was in a good mood, and she happily smiled as she spoke. When the 3 bandits who were riddled with scars heard that the demoness had finally let them go, they were immediately overjoyed. They hurriedly ran back and told the story in an even more exaggerated manner. They said that the demoness wanted to skin Wang Meng, cut his bones, and pull a sow to do it with him. Now, she even told them to roll over and kneel down to lick the soles of her feet. Hearing this, Wang Meng was infuriated, and his face became red. After hearing that there were only 5 of them, he immediately yelled, "Brothers, come with me." Following this, Wang Meng led 50 or so people, which was more than half of the village's fighting force, and ferociously walked towards where Lu Mei was. Soon, Wang Meng came to a relatively spacious area and looked at Lu Mei as he yelled, "You stinking bitch! You said that your elder would kneel and lick your feet, so your elder and my brothers will do it to you." Lu Mei didn't get angry, and she instead calmly smiled. There was no need to say anything to a dead person. Fire! Lu Mei gave the order as arrows rained down on Wang Meng's 50 or so people. Wang Meng's people were completely unprepared, and they were hit by the countless arrows and fell to the ground dead. Zhao Fu and the other 3 groups of soldiers had long since killed the other 3 groups of soldiers from the ferocious tiger village. Now, Wang Meng's 50 or so people were facing 40 gnome crossbowmen and 60 archers, and they were completely unprepared. How could they survive? Including Wang Meng, the other 50 or so people were all killed, and not a single one of them survived. At that moment, Zhao Fu and his people came out from the bushes and gave the order to clean up the battlefield. He went to Wang Meng's corpse and searched it. He found a small pouch with tens of silver coins inside, and his large saber was a blue-grade weapon. Following this, everyone walked towards the ferocious tiger village, and Lu Mei smiled as she followed behind Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu turned to look at her and said softly, "You did well this time." Zhao Fu had originally wanted Bai Qi to go out and provoke the villagers, and the more vulgar the words, the better. However, Bai Qi was a general, so how could he say such vulgar words? As such, he decided to let Lu Mei, who used to be a bandit, do it. This time, Lu Mei had contributed the most. Lu Mei lightly harumphed, and she was no longer as restrained as before as she said in a pleased manner, "Of course, I'm quite powerful." Hearing this, Zhao Fu lightly laughed and did not say anything. After all, they had arrived at the ferocious tiger village, and there were only 40 or so people left, so there was nothing to be afraid of. Bai Qi walked up and said, "You've all received the system announcement, right? Your leader and the others are all dead. If you surrender now, I promise I won't kill you." When the bandits saw that there were 300 or so enemies outside the village, they thought about it and decided not to fight to the death. Instead, they obediently surrendered. Zhao Fu found the blacksmith who knew how to forge armor. He was a dark-skinned man called Deng Li. Following this, Zhao Fu went to the village hall and chose to conquer it. He received a system announcement that he had received 50 achievement points. Because this village was quite far away from Qin village, Zhao Fu chose to relocate, and he received a system announcement that he had received 280 EXP from Qin village. This prompt was followed by another prompt. Congratulations! Qin village has become an intermediate village. Chapter 25. Zhao Fu was delighted that he had finally leveled up. After returning to the Great Qin village, he gave Deng Li and the 36 pieces of armor that they had taken from the ferocious tiger village's bandits to Wang Dao and had him repair them. The blacksmith shop and tailor shop were seriously short of manpower. They had yet to repair the weapons they had obtained from the big crack. Now that they had the armor, Zhao Fu had no choice but to hire more people for them. After that, Zhao Fu rebuilt the tiger village to the west of Qin village and sent a few people to manage it. He then went to the village hall to check the intermediate village's attributes. Village name: Qin village legendary. Level: intermediate village area. 5 square kilometers village territory. 250 square kilometers popular support. 80 special attributes. Territory crop yield plus 40%. Territory crop growth time minus 40%. Population limit plus 20%. Residence attributes plus 2. Soldiers attributes plus 2. Population attraction plus 30%. High quality attraction plus 30%. Affiliated village limit. 8 affiliated villages. Logue Village, Jean Village, Doran Village, Lee Family Village, Wolf Village, Tiger Village. In terms of attributes, it was an expected increase of 10%, so Zhao Fu was not too surprised. However, the number of affiliated villages surprised Zhao Fu. There were 8 affiliated villages at once. However, the Great Qin Village's population would always be a problem. Right now, the Great Qin Village only had 465 people, while the Great Qin Village's population limit was 6,000. Apart from the Great Qin Village, the other village's population was not yet full. This was especially so for the Wild Wolf Village and Ferocious Tiger Village. Zhao Fu had transferred all of the people from the Wild Wolf Village and Ferocious Tiger Village to the Great Qin Village, so the two villages now had less than 20 people. The Li family village had been full, but 2/3 of them had been brought to Qin Village by Zhao Fu, so there was a population gap. This caused Zhao Fu to sigh. However, one couldn't become fat in a single bite, and the development of a village required time and effort to slowly become stronger. At the very least, with the Great Qin Village's bonus stats, they would be able to spawn 40 or so villagers every day. Zhao Fu sighed. As for the bottom of the Great Rift, Zhao Fu did not plan to explore it for the time being. Instead, he planned to form 2 special teams to explore the bottom of the Great Rift. First of all, Zhao Fu planned to form a team of mages. Because magic skills were rare, they could be a very powerful offensive method. As such, Zhao Fu planned to lead some people to hunt magic beasts and help tame some large wild beasts, such as cows, pigs, and horses. Because Zhao Fu lacked horses, he hadn't formed a cavalry yet. Cavalry was the most mobile unit in the era of cold weapons. With horses, there was no need for them to run here and there. After spending some money, Zhao Fu obtained the taming skill without changing his profession. He then brought by Qi, Old Logue, 10 shield bearers, 10 bladesmen, and 10 archers. In the end, Lu Mei insisted on going, and after thinking about it, Zhao Fu agreed. Qin Village was at the outermost region of the Forest of Horrors, and as they went deeper into the forest, there would be more and more magic beasts. As such, Zhao Fu and his group headed west. On the way, the trees became taller and taller, and the treetops seemed to reach into the clouds. The lighting around them was quite poor, and the trees looked quite strange. Occasionally, a few rabbits would run past, causing some noise. Zhao Fu did not mind this and continued onwards. Soon, they found a female wild boar and 8 baby wild boars looking for food. Wild boars were creatures that lived by themselves once they reached adulthood, and they were quite difficult to catch, unlike other creatures that lived in groups. If they could find a den, it would be great. Dens were like villages, and they would also spawn wild beasts. However, dens were not like villages. There were very few of them, and they were all guarded by wild beasts, ranging from hundreds to tens of thousands. Now that they were quite far away from Qin Village, they couldn't go back just for this female wild boar and the baby wild boars, so they decided to let the female wild boar go. Zhao Fu continued onwards. At that moment, Zhao Fu stopped and found that there were 10 or so azure oxen next to a small stream. The azure oxen's hide was light azure, and their horns gave off a metallic luster. As long as they could catch these azure oxen, they would be able to open up farmland and transport iron ores, which would take a lot of time and effort. As such, Zhao Fu immediately turned his gaze to the herd of azure oxen. However, these large wild beasts were not easy to catch, so Zhao Fu and his group rushed up. If the azure oxen went berserk and charged at them, Zhao Fu would have to dodge. His 10 shield bearers would not be able to stop the charge of these 10 or so azure oxen. They also could not use archers to attack. It was fine to shoot a few arrows at the azure oxen, but as long as their arrows did not hit their vitals, they would run. How could a person chase after an enraged azure oxen? Moreover, if the azure oxen ran away in fear, there was nothing they could do. Perhaps they could have archers shoot at the azure oxen's legs, injuring them so that they would not be able to run. However, it was also possible that the azure oxen would become crippled. Thinking about 10 or so crippled azure oxen opening up farmland and transporting iron ores, that was not very feasible. Right now, using traps was the best method. Zhao Fu turned and told Bai Qi and the others about his plan, and they nodded in agreement. They then started to set up traps to the north of the herd of azure oxen. Zhao Fu, Bai Qi, and Lu Mei split up into 3 teams, each with a few people. As for Old Log, because of his age and being a goblin, he could not run very fast, so he stayed behind to control the situation and use fireballs to ensure that the azure oxen would fall into the traps. Following this, Zhao Fu, Bai Qi, and Lu Mei split up and headed towards the herd of azure oxen from the east, south, and west. As they got closer, the azure oxen sensed danger and stopped grazing, looking up at their surroundings. At that moment, Zhao Fu, Bai Qi, and Lu Mei rushed out with their people. They did not attack, only yelling or slamming their sabers against their shields to show off their power. They did not allow the azure oxen to attack them, making them feel afraid and choose to run. The 3 of them rushed out with their people, and the happiest one was Lu Mei. She laughed as she waved her whip and rushed over. When the 3 teams rushed out, the azure oxen were given a fright. Seeing that there were people in all directions, they could only run north. The 3 teams gathered together and chased after the azure oxen. If any of the azure oxen slightly deviated from their path towards the traps, Zhao Fu would order people to shoot arrows to help correct them. Soon, the azure oxen rushed into the traps, and in the next moment, ropes wrapped around their legs. Bang, 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 the azure oxen tripped and fell to the ground, giving off muffled sounds and kicking up a lot of dust. Soon, the azure oxen got back up and tried to run, but they were unable to break free from the ropes around their legs. The ropes were as thick as 2 fingers put together, and they were tied to trees that were 1 meter thick. As such, no matter how much the azure oxen struggled, they were unable to break free. Chapter 26. Zhao Fu sent 2 people to drive the herd of azure oxen back before continuing onwards. At that moment, a sound came from a bush nearby, causing everyone to stop. Following this, a violent flame rabbit jumped out from the bush. This violent flame rabbit was smaller than the one they had killed before. The violent flame rabbit's temper was quite explosive, and as soon as it came out, it dared to attack Zhao Fu's group. A fireball flew towards Zhao Fu's group. The shield bearer raised his shield and blocked the fireball. The fireballs might only force the shield bearer back a step and did not take any damage. Zhao Fu ordered the archers to attack. Facing so many arrows, the violent flame rabbit quickly dodged, but it was still shot to death. However, after it died, it did not drop an elemental orb, making Zhao Fu feel quite disappointed. They continued onwards and encountered another 30 or so Black Mountain goats. They used traps and successfully captured them, and it was like this for the next few days. However, they managed to tame many wild beasts, 36 wild boars, 85 azure cows, and 215 Black Mountain goats. They did not obtain a single magic skill, nor did they find any traces of horses. Over the next few days, Wang Dao repaired all of the weapons and armor that they had obtained from the crack. Now that their equipment had been completely changed, most of the archers and shield bearers in Zhao Fu's group used blue-grade weapons, while the infantrymen all used blue-grade weapons. After Wang Dao repaired all of these, Zhao Fu ordered him to forge special equipment. This equipment was something that Zhao Fu, Bai Qi, and Li Si had agreed on, and it was specifically made to deal with skeletons. Now, Zhao Fu and his group continued to explore the inner regions of the Forest of Horrors, hoping to find more magic beasts or horses. At that moment, Zhao Fu and his group passed by a valley. Suddenly, a few gray wolves rushed out, but they were quickly shot to death by the archers. Zhao Fu felt quite interested in the valley, so he decided to go in and take a look. Unexpectedly, he discovered a lair. Now, Zhao Fu was hiding on a hillside in the distance, observing the situation below, not daring to approach. In a valley below, there was a piece of flat land that was nearly 3,000 meters wide. It was overgrown with weeds, but in the middle of the flat land, there was a platform made of stone bricks. It was very similar to the starting place of an ordinary village, but on the platform floated a stone sculpture that looked like a wolf. There were many gray wolves around the platform, frolicking in the valley. There were about 400 to 500 of them, and there was even a wolf king among them. Its body was as big as a tiger, and its body was covered in soft gray fur. Its eyes were sharp, and there was a tuft of silver fur on its head. Although he didn't find any magical beasts or horses, Zhao Fu was still pleasantly surprised. Zhao Fu immediately led his men back to gather the troops. There were a total of 326 soldiers, and they headed towards Gray Wolf Valley. At the start, Zhao Fu didn't choose to directly attack. If he couldn't suppress the Gray Wolves, Zhao Fu wouldn't choose to directly attack. As such, from the start, Zhao Fu and his men hid. Zhao Fu had his people set up traps to lure the Gray Wolves out. It was actually quite simple. They just needed to use fresh meat to attract the Gray Wolves. The traps didn't need to be too close, as wolves had a good sense of smell. This way, they would only need to attract 10 or so Gray Wolves. This time, Zhao Fu killed a few wild deer and split them into a few pieces before scattering a large amount of blood on the ground. In order to ensure that the traps would be successful, the people who set up the traps had to roll in the mud and use the mud to cover their scent. At the same time, they also had to mix in the smell of pepper and garlic. The plan was quite successful, and soon, the smell of blood attracted 10 or so Gray Wolves. The Gray Wolves were quite vigilant and didn't immediately pounce on the deer meat. Instead, they sniffed in the distance, and after finding that there was no danger, they slowly approached. Following this, the Gray Wolves came to the deer meat but didn't directly eat it. Instead, they lowered their heads and sniffed. If it was Zhao Fu who poisoned it, it definitely wouldn't work. Following this, the Gray Wolves didn't find any danger and were about to eat. Swish, 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 arrows shot out from the forest towards the Gray Wolves. The Gray Wolves were given a big fright and turned to run. However, most of them were still killed, and a few managed to escape. However, they were intercepted by Zhao Fu's people. At that moment, one of the Gray Wolves stopped and raised its head, preparing to howl. Zhao Fu was quite startled. This howl would definitely draw out all of the Gray Wolves, and his plan would fail. As such, he quickly drew his bow and shot an arrow. The arrow drew an arc in the air, flashing a cold light. Poochie! The arrow pierced into the Gray Wolf's neck, causing it to fall to the ground and whimper before twitching and dying. At the same time, Zhao Fu gave the order to quickly kill the other Gray Wolves so that they wouldn't be able to make a single sound. Everyone else obeyed and quickly killed the remaining Gray Wolves. Following this, they continued to use this method to draw out more Gray Wolves, but they became even more careful. Just like that, they used this method to kill 213 Gray Wolves. After so many Gray Wolves had died, the Gray Wolf King within the valley sensed something and stood up. It walked to a large boulder and raised its head high. A massive howl sounded throughout the valley, and all of the Gray Wolves that had been playing or eating stopped what they were doing and raised their heads to howl. A woo. Wolf howls sounded out in all directions, causing countless birds in the valley to fly into the air. At that moment, Zhao Fu and his soldiers got into formation and walked with heavy footsteps, giving off an oppressive and austere aura that only the army had as they walked into the valley. The Gray Wolf King stood on a large boulder and looked at Zhao Fu's group. It furiously howled, and the Gray Wolves started to run as fast as they could towards Zhao Fu's group. 300 Gray Wolves flooded towards them like a gray flood. Get into formation, Zhao Fu loudly shouted. The spearmen and shield-bearers took 3 steps forwards and aimed their spears at the Gray Wolves. The archers drew their bows, and the gnomes set up their crossbows. Fire! Zhao Fu loudly shouted when he saw that the gray wolves had entered their attack range. Swish! 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 The sound of the air being torn could be heard as arrows flew out, forming a rain of arrows that shot towards the gray wolves. Puff! 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 The rain of arrows descended like raindrops, killing gray wolves one by one. However, there were also gray wolves that charged through the rain of arrows. Fire! Zhao Fu once again shouted. Arrows once again flew out, forming a rain of arrows that enveloped the gray wolves. Gray wolves once again fell to the ground and died. However, by now, the gray wolves had reached the soldiers, but the soldiers stabbed out with their spears. Puff! 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 Blood flew everywhere as the gray wolves' bodies were pierced by the spears. A single gray wolf wasn't very strong, and only a pack of gray wolves were strong. However, after 2 waves of arrows, only 150 or so gray wolves remained. Even though they were a pack, Zhao Fu had twice as many people as they did. Moreover, they had all sorts of soldiers and had a solid defense, making the battle completely one-sided. Chapter 27. The Grey Wolf King was incredibly fast, and in just a few moments, it had reached the shield-bearers. It gave a cruel smile as it leapt towards them. However, at that moment, 2 blood-red fireballs flew towards it. Old Logue, who had not acted yet, had acted. The Grey Wolf King was given a big fright and dodged to the side. Just as it landed, a whip viciously lashed at its body. Lu Mei had also acted. Even though the whip did not deal much damage to the Grey Wolf King, it was still quite painful. After being hit by the whip, the Grey Wolf King turned and bared its sharp fangs at Lu Mei as it roared and rushed towards her. However, before it had even taken a few steps, a figure suddenly appeared beside it. Puchi! A sword light flashed out as blood sprayed everywhere. Bai Qi, who had been preparing for a long time, had also acted. The Grey Wolf King howled in pain and turned to bite at Bai Qi. Bai Qi immediately retreated. Puchi! An arrow hit the Grey Wolf King's front leg. Zhao Fu had been observing the Grey Wolf King from the very beginning, and he finally acted. The Grey Wolf King was completely enraged by this series of attacks, and it roared as it rushed toward Zhao Fu. Seeing the Grey Wolf King charge at him, Zhao Fu did not show any fear. He did not move at all as he raised his hand and shot out a fireball. The Grey Wolf King twisted its body to dodge, and in the next moment, 2 blood-red fireballs flew towards it. The Grey Wolf King did its best to dodge one, but it was hit by the other. Bang! A massive explosion sounded out as the Grey Wolf King was blasted backwards, and some of its fur was charred. Just as the Grey Wolf King landed on the ground, Bai Qi appeared beside it and slashed out with his sword, leaving another wound on the Grey Wolf King's body. The Grey Wolf King madly leapt at Bai Qi. However, in the next moment, a whip wrapped around its leg. Lu Mei gripped the whip with both hands and laughed as she pulled, causing the Grey Wolf King to lose its balance and fall to the ground. This was the power of teamwork, and it could also be used to bully the weak. The Grey Wolf King was beaten to the point that it could not retaliate at all. Seeing that they had complete control over the Grey Wolf King, Zhao Fu focused on commanding the other soldiers to deal with the remaining Grey Wolves. 10 or so minutes later, all of the Grey Wolves had been killed, and countless copper coins had been dropped. On Zhao Fu's side, only a few people had been bitten, and the rest were mostly fine. Zhao Fu turned to look at the Grey Wolf King, who was now covered with wounds and looked quite pitiful. After thinking about it, Zhao Fu decided not to kill the Grey Wolf King, as it was far more valuable than taming it. As such, he ordered his people to use ropes to tie it up. The Grey Wolf King was already an arrow at the end of its flight. With the help of Bai Qi and the others, it was not long before the Grey Wolf King was tied up. Zhao Fu lightly smiled and ordered the others to clean up the battlefield while he walked over to the Grey Wolf King and looked at it. The Grey Wolf King viciously glared at Zhao Fu, wanting to eat Zhao Fu alive. However, Zhao Fu didn't seem to mind, and he placed his hand on the Grey Wolf King's forehead. Now that the Grey Wolf King's mouth was bound, he didn't have to worry about being bitten. After using taming, Zhao Fu's palm gave off a ray of light that covered the Grey Wolf King's body. However, the Grey Wolf King immediately struggled free. Zhao Fu's expression became serious, and he pressed his hand against the Grey Wolf King's head, once again using taming. However, the Grey Wolf King desperately struggled, but it was unable to break free from the light. Zhao Fu's taming failed, and the Grey Wolf King even bumped into him, causing him to stumble and almost fall. Seeing this, Bai Qi's gaze became cold, and he walked over and said, "Your Majesty, wolves are very prideful creatures and are very difficult to tame. How about we kill it?" "That's right. I've never tasted Wolf King meat before, so I'll wonder what it tastes like." Lu Mei ran over and looked at the Grey Wolf King. As Lu Mei interacted more and more with the people of Qin Village, she had become more open-minded, and she was no longer worried that Zhao Fu would kill her. Of course, she was the only one who dared to call herself in front of Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu shook his head and refused their suggestion. He wanted to try again, so he walked up to the Grey Wolf King and stared at the furious Grey Wolf King as he calmly said, "You're angry because I massacred your tribe, right? You must be angry because I massacred your tribe, but this is a world where the strong preys on the weak, and only the fittest survive. If you submit to me, I'll definitely make you the most respected existence in the wolf tribe in your lifetime. Also, you'll have a den, and it'll soon return to its original state. If you don't agree, I can only kill you and wait for the next den to evolve into a new Wolf King." Hearing Zhao Fu's words, the Grey Wolf King struggled for a moment, but in the end, it chose to submit. System announcement. You have obtained the loyalty of a leader-class creature, the Grey Wolf King. System announcement. You have subdued a leader-class creature and obtained 50 achievement points. Zhao Fu was quite surprised to hear that there were also achievement points. He ordered his people to release the Grey Wolf King and heal it. Bai Qi and Old Logue congratulated Zhao Fu, while Lu Mei unhappily pouted because she hadn't been able to eat the Grey Wolf King's meat. At that moment, Zhao Fu looked at the Grey Wolf King's stats. Grey Wolf King, leader, level, stage 5 grade. S stats, strength, 15, intelligence, 9 agility, 17 constitution, 11 skills. Wolf King's deterrence, causes all normal wolves to feel fear and submit. Bloodthirsty bite, furiously bites until the enemy dies. Zhao Fu never thought that wild beasts would have different grades, and he was quite shocked. As for the Grey Wolf King's grade, it was most likely not a wild beast, but a magic beast. He left everything here to Bai Qi, and Zhao Fu went to the Denver. He stretched out his hand and touched the wolf-shaped statue, receiving a piece of information. Den, Grey Wolf, basic grade. White description, the den of Grey Wolves. Can spawn 2 to 5 Grey Wolves every day. The den stats were roughly the same as a normal village's stats. Zhao Fu looked at it and chose to conquer it. He received another 50 achievement points. This place was quite far from Qin Village, so Zhao Fu could only choose to relocate and receive 180 XP. The wolf-shaped statue in the air became a normal statue and fell into Zhao Fu's hand. Zhao Fu wanted to take the stone statue and leave, but he suddenly noticed that there was a large patch of jade-green grass growing nearby. It was sparkling and seemed quite extraordinary, and Zhao Fu couldn't help but go up to take a look. He received a set of information. Little spirit grass. Grade, stage 1 medicinal herb. Description, a type of spirit herb that can be used to refine medicinal pills. After looking at this information, Zhao Fu couldn't help but smile. Before, Zhao Fu had obtained the little spirit pills recipe, but because of the lack of medicinal herbs, he had not been able to refine it. Now, he had obtained it effortlessly. There were thousands of little spirit grasses, and Zhao Fu immediately ordered people to dig up some of them. He planned to refine some of them and transplant some of them. After all, Qin Village's growth time was reduced, so he could take the little spirit grasses and plant them in large quantities. Finally, everyone returned to Qin Village. They had returned with a bountiful harvest, and everyone's faces were filled with joy. After returning to the village, Zhao Fu planned out a plot of land to use as the den wolves had a keen sense of smell, and they could be used as hunting dogs in the future. Moreover, the materials on their bodies could be used to make equipment, and the den could spawn gray wolves every day. Chapter 28. After returning to the real world, Zhao Fu made a bowl of instant noodles and turned on his computer as usual. He sat in front of his computer and ate instant noodles as he browsed through the Heaven Awakened World Forum. He checked to see if there was any interesting news. As expected, something big had happened. Recently, someone had compiled a hero rankings. The hero ranking didn't have a ranking for now, and it didn't differentiate between the top and the bottom. It only collected these individuals, and these heroes were all the descendants of those famous generals and ministers in history. For example, there was Liu Zhan, the descendant of Liu Bu from the Three Kingdoms, who could defeat 10 bandits with a halberd. There was Cheng Damon, the descendant of Cheng Yaojin from the Tang Dynasty, who could wield a massive axe majestically. There was Bao Xiaoduan, the descendant of Bao Zheng from the Song Dynasty, who could solve cases like a god. The descendants of famous generals and ministers seemed to have obtained legacies after entering the Heaven Awakened world, and they had famous generals and ministers' professions. However, no one knew if they were willing to serve the countries that their ancestors had served. They were all incredibly talented and thought highly of themselves. Did they not want to establish a foundation in the Heaven Awakened world? There was already some news that Zhuge Gui, the descendant of Zhuge Liang from the Three Kingdoms, had valiantly declared that he and his ancestors would each have their own master. There was also Li Jun, the descendant of Li Shan from the Ming Dynasty, who had vowed to fight against the great Ming Dynasty. Apart from this, what surprised Zhao Fu was that some schools of thought that had died out long ago had started to rise again. There was the school of legalism, which governed the country with law, the school of military, which governed the world with weapons, the school of Taoism, the school of Confucianism, the school of Yin-Yang, the school of debate, the school of Moism, the school of love with impartiality, the school of farming, and the school of farming. There is also the school of Confucianism, Moism, and the 100 schools of thought. The Heaven Awakened world was becoming more and more interesting. Zhao Fu lightly smiled, but his expression became serious. The world is in chaos, and the world is on fire. Of the 100 schools of thought, only I can move unhindered. The stars and moon hang in the sky, and the ghost valley on earth. School of vertical and horizontal. Zhao Fu looked at this school seriously. Zhao Fu had to take this school seriously because it was simply too dangerous. The 5 hegemons of the spring and autumn period, the 7 heroes of the Warring States period. In the past 700 years, the rise and fall of each country and each dynasty had a common name, the unhindered Ghost Valley. First, there was Pang Wan, who was incredibly courageous and courageous. He conquered the Han, Zhao, and Chu, and fought against Qi of Qi, causing the weak Wei to sweep and dominating the Central Plains. When Sun Bin entered Qi, his intellect was invincible. He reduced the power of Zhao, Wei, Han, and Chu, allowing Qi to regain its position as the hegemon of Qi. His book on military strategy was passed down to later generations. Later, Su Qin united the 6 countries and held the seal of the 6 countries. Zhang Yi used the horizontal strategy to break the 6 countries. The two used the world as a game and the people as chess pieces to launch a peak battle. Zhao Chun School and Fu of How of This and the Awakened CEC and the Fu Yang and the world Qin and Dynasty 1-1 he 1-1-1-1 and 1. Fu in the dynasty and the dynasty that Zhao Fu was also quite interested in this sect, and his heart felt heavy. In the end, he could only sigh and continue reading. The most important thing was that the Ying family started to take back all of the people who had the Ying family's bloodline, giving them generous treatment. Moreover, the Ying family told anyone who obtained their ancestors' legacy to return to the main family as soon as possible. No matter if it was money, wealth, or women, they would be given everything they wanted, and they would be made the successor of the Ying family. After reading this, Zhao Fu decided that he didn't want to join the Ying family, so he didn't pay too much attention to these things. However, This matter attracted the attention of all the aristocratic families. If it was in terms of power and foundation, Xia, Shang, Zhou, Qin, Han, and Wui were the five great hegemons. As for the Han dynasty, it was a chaotic era and a period of great division. The country could not compare to the five great hegemons at all. In this world, who didn't have ambition? Who didn't want to rule this world? Ordinary clans would look at the clans that had inherited the legacy of a country, and the clans that had inherited the legacy of a country would look at the clans that had completed the unification of dynasties and generations. These clans of dynasties and generations would look at the five great clans in front of them. This was the true warring states era. Zhao Fu finished his noodles in a few bites and drank a few mouthfuls of soup before once again entering the Heaven-Awakened world. After entering the Heaven-Awakened world, Li Si walked over and handed Zhao Fu a medicinal bottle, saying that it was a little spirit pill that he had successfully refined. Zhao Fu opened the bottle, and a refreshing fragrance floated out. Zhao Fu nodded and returned to his room, planning to test the effects of the pill. He took out a little spirit pill, which was a faint red color and as big as a soybean. After consuming it, Zhao Fu entered a state of cultivation. A few hours later, a look of delight appeared on Zhao Fu's face. His cultivation had once again risen. Name, Zhao Fu. Title, Nun profession, Demon Priest achievement points, Citizen race, Human age, 21-100 stats, Strength, 9, Intelligence, 12, Constitution, 8, Agility, 10, Special power, Weak, Demon's power, Cultivation, Stage 2-2 Cultivation technique, Qin Dynasty Inner Cultivation technique skills, Health Fireball, Basic sword technique, Equipment, Iron sword. The effects of the little spirit pill were much better than cultivating on his own. After testing the effects, Zhao Fu immediately had people carefully plant the little spirit pill while he continued to explore the inner regions of the Forest of Horrors, hoping to find traces of horses. This time, Zhao Fu took the Gray Wolf King with him. Its injuries had not healed yet, and Zhao Fu did not have it fight. Instead, he used its sense of smell to find other wild beasts. At the same time, Zhao Fu changed its name to Little Gray. Zhao Fu took Little Gray with him, and it was much faster than searching for other wild beasts. This time, they found 3 violent flame rabbits, and they finally dropped an elemental orb. Zhao Fu planned to give this to Li Wen. Li Wen was one of the few people in Qin village with a grade, and he was Li Youcai's son, so he could be nurtured. In the next 2 days, Zhao Fu killed a few wind foxes and obtained a wind blade elemental orb. He then tamed some wild beasts, but he did not find anything else. However, the special equipment that blacksmith Wang Dao had forged was completed, and this caused Zhao Fu to change his mind. He decided to continue exploring the large crack. "I want to go as well," Lu Mei said as she ran over and looked at Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu turned and looked at her as he said, "Your whip won't be able to deal much damage to the skeletons, so stay up there. Don't you have the wind blade elemental orb? Learn it for me, and I'll go down and see what the skeletons are like," Lu Mei said in a loud and impolite voice. Hearing this, Zhao Fu glared at her. Lu Mei was quite afraid of Zhao Fu, so she immediately became obedient and awkwardly bowed as she said dejectedly, "Your Majesty, I was wrong. I was wrong." Chapter 29. Soon, they encountered a group of skeletons. There were 11 skeletons, and 5 of them were skeleton shield-bearers and 6 were skeleton infantrymen. After reviving, they charged at Zhao Fu's group. At that moment, 10 goblin warriors wearing iron armor and holding shields that were 2 meters tall and 4 inches thick formed a shield wall. The passageway was 10 meters wide, and the shields were 2 meters wide. The 10 shields added up to 12 meters, and the goblin warriors were only able to slightly retreat. However, the shield wall completely blocked the incoming skeletons. No matter how the skeleton shield-bearers charged at them, the goblin warriors didn't move at all. Seeing this, Zhao Fu felt quite satisfied and gave the order to open up a gap, allowing a few skeletons in. The 2 goblin warriors obeyed and tilted their shields, causing a few skeletons to crawl in, and the goblin warriors immediately closed up the gap. The skeletons that charged in were faced with 10 valiant-looking men wearing iron armor and holding large hammers. As the hammers smashed down, the skeletons were smashed to the ground, and after a few more strikes, the skeletons were reduced to a pile of bones. Compared to sharp weapons, blunt weapons dealt more damage to the skeletons, and Zhao Fu quickly used this method to kill the skeletons. This group of skeletons gave them 11 blue-grade weapons and 9 refined martial souls. 3 of them were shield-bearers, and Zhao Fu immediately gave them to the goblin warriors to use. This was the special method that Zhao Fu had prepared. First, the goblin warriors were equipped with large shields and iron armor, which had taken some time. Now that the goblin warriors had learned shielding, with their immense strength, they would definitely become excellent shield-bearers. Everyone present, whether it was the goblin warriors, the hammer-wielding infantrymen, or the archers, had all used refined martial souls. Before, Zhao Fu hadn't wanted to use a refined martial soul, because the refined martial souls here were not ordinary, and they could all give C- grade or above skills. If he gave it to a group of people who only had F or E grade grades and did not have much growth potential, it would be a waste. However, now that he thought about it, it was just a small price he had to pay to obtain more refined martial souls. The goblin warriors received C, enhanced shielding, the 10 infantrymen received C, enhanced smash, and the archers received the same skill as Zhao Fu, rock-crushing arrow. Li Wen and Liu Mei had also used refined martial souls. Li Wen had used an archer's refined martial soul, while Liu Mei had used an infantryman's refined martial soul. Hence, both of them had obtained skills, and their skill proficiency had reached proficient or above. Only old Lo was too old to engage in close combat, so he didn't use his refined martial soul. Now, Zhao Fu's party was incredibly powerful. Killing these skeletons was incredibly easy, and they were more than twice as fast as before. This was mainly because they were able to counter these skeletons. The goblins held up their shields and formed an incredibly firm iron wall, and the 10 infantrymen held up their hammers. Smashing down with their hammers would be many times more effective than slashing down with their sabers. Continue forward. Blue sparks lit up in the darkness, and this time, 17 skeletons were revived. 5 of them were skeleton archers, 6 were skeleton shield-bearers, and 6 were skeleton infantrymen. Facing so many skeletons, Zhao Fu's party didn't show any fear, and they continued to attack in an orderly fashion. The archers in the first wave of attacks pierced through the heads of 3 skeleton infantrymen, and the goblin warriors raised their shields and used the same method as before to quickly kill the skeletons. As for the other items that the skeletons dropped, they only dropped a single soldier soul, which made Zhao Fu feel quite delighted. The drop rate for soldier souls was simply too low, and skeleton captains had a 100% chance of dropping them. Just as Zhao Fu spoke, a skeleton captain led 10 or so other skeletons and rushed over. This time, the skeleton captain was a skeleton archer, and its archery was incredibly sharp. Zhao Fu's party was almost hit a few times. However, in the end, the skeleton captain was surrounded and killed by Bai Qi and the others. Unsurprisingly, it dropped a soldier soul, and its bow was also a silver grade weapon. Flowing Cloud Bow. Grade, silver stats, strength +3, constitution +1, agility +2, description. An exquisite gold-grade flowing cloud bow that has been unable to withstand the corrosion of time and has become an ordinary silver-grade weapon. For now, Zhao Fu kept the flowing cloud bow because he would sometimes use it to attack. They continued onwards and killed a few more waves of skeletons, dropping 3 soldier souls. They didn't encounter anything unexpected, and the passageway seemed to be endless. The area ahead was completely dark, and it was impossible to see the bottom. Clatter, clatter, clatter. Suddenly, the sound of hooves could be heard, and Zhao Fu thought of something. Without needing Zhao Fu to say anything, everyone else knew what it was. Soon, a few skeleton cavalrymen appeared in front of them. These skeleton cavalrymen were riding on skeleton horses, and their horses and armor were still intact. They looked quite worn out, and they seemed to be white-grayed. However, their weapons were all blue-grayed. As soon as the 5 skeleton cavalrymen appeared, they unsheathed their swords and slashed at Zhao Fu's group of people. Zhao Fu immediately yelled, "Raise your shields!" The goblin warriors raised their massive shields, forming an iron wall. At the same time, they prepared to be rammed into, and Zhao Fu ordered the archers to attack. Arrows flew out, and most of them were dodged by the skeleton cavalrymen. A few of the arrows hit the skeleton cavalrymen, but they didn't deal much damage. They only paused for a moment, but their speed wasn't reduced at all. After all, they were riding on skeleton horses. Just as the skeleton cavalrymen were about to reach them, for fireballs and one wind blade flew out, landing in front of them. Bang, bang, bang. A chain of explosions sounded out, and with so many spells exploding at the same time, the explosive force was shocking. The 2 skeleton cavalrymen at the front were blown off their horses, but the 3 skeleton cavalrymen behind and beside them weren't affected much, and they continued to ferociously charge forwards. However, they couldn't do anything to the goblin warriors' shield wall, and they couldn't jump over it. The shields were already 2 meters tall, but after the goblin warriors raised them, they became 3 meters tall. Ordinary horses wouldn't be able to jump so high. The skeleton cavalrymen could only urge their skeleton horses to ram into the shield wall, wanting to break through it. Bang, bang, bang. 3 muffled sounds rang out as the skeleton horses smashed into the shields. The goblin warriors gritted their teeth and raised their shields, blocking the skeleton horses' charge. At that moment, Zhao Fu ordered the archers to kill the 2 skeleton cavalrymen that had fallen off their horses, and he had the goblin warriors open 2 holes, allowing the 2 skeleton cavalrymen to enter. As soon as the 2 skeleton cavalrymen charged in, the 10 infantrymen split into 2 groups and raised their iron hammers, smashing the skeleton horses' legs with all their strength, causing them to collapse. Chapter 30. The 5 skeleton cavalrymen had all been killed. Of the 5 skeleton horses, 2 had died. 1 had been half crippled, and the remaining 2 were blocked by the shield wall. These 2 skeleton horses belonged to the 2 skeleton cavalrymen that had been blasted off their horses. Now that they had lost their owner's control, they instinctively tried to charge over, but were blocked by the shield wall. Zhao Fu ignored the 2 skeleton horses outside the shield wall and walked over to the half-crippled skeleton horse, trying to tame it. He wanted to see if he could tame the skeleton horse. If he could, he would be able to use the skeleton horse as a war horse, and he would be able to become a cavalryman. However, when Zhao Fu used tame, he found that it didn't work on skeletons. This greatly disappointed Zhao Fu, and he could only kill them. Zhao Fu continued onwards. After killing a few more waves of skeletons, all of the skeleton soldiers had been gathered. However, this didn't deal much damage to Zhao Fu. After killing all of the skeletons, they dropped countless items. Most of them were equipment, a small number were refined martial souls, and only a small number were soldier souls. At that moment, the passageway gradually widened, and there was finally a slight change. Zhao Fu let out a sigh of relief. He had thought that there really was no end, and that they would continue on like this. Suddenly, in the darkness ahead, a blooming spirit fire lit up, and a powerful aura rushed towards them. Everyone hurriedly raised their torches and saw that a skeleton general wearing silver armor and holding a 2-handed sword had awakened. Everyone's expressions became serious. The skeleton general slowly stood up and looked at Zhao Fu's group, giving off an eerie killing intent that caused the entire passageway to feel cold. Zhao Fu couldn't help but yell, "Be careful!" After standing up, the skeleton general strode towards Zhao Fu's group. Seeing this, Zhao Fu immediately ordered the archers to fire. Swish, 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 arrows tore through the air as they flew towards the skeleton general. Facing the incoming arrows, the skeleton general didn't show any fear, and it held its sword as it slowly walked forwards. Just as the arrows were less than a meter away from it, the skeleton general's body trembled as it looked at the skeleton general. The skeleton general raised the sword in its hand, which gave off wisps of gray aura as it waved its hand. Bang! One by one, the arrows were sent flying by an invisible force. Out of the 10 arrows, not a single one was able to get close to him. Zhao Fu drew his flowing cloud bow and used his rock-crushing arrow. The arrow gave off traces of a mysterious yellow aura as it shot through the air. The skeleton general tilted its head slightly, and the arrow flew past its head and into the ground, causing it to tremble. The skeleton general easily dodged Zhao Fu's arrows. Then, with a flash of his body, he appeared in front of the shield wall and raised his sword. Clang! The sword slammed into the shield wall, resulting in an ear-piercing clang and a large amount of sparks. The 5 goblin warriors were sent flying back 4 or 5 meters, and there was an inch-deep gash on their shields. Seeing how powerful the skeleton general was, Zhao Fu and Bai Qi's expressions became serious. Li Wen had never seen such a powerful skeleton before, and his face became pale. Following this, Zhao Fu could only yell, "Fire! Fire!" Arrows once again flew out, but the skeleton general's body blurred, dodging all of them before reappearing on the other side. Zhao Fu immediately yelled, "Wind blade!" Lu Mei didn't dare to be careless, and she earnestly used her wind blade. A green crescent-shaped wind blade shot towards the skeleton general. The skeleton general once again dodged to the side, and the wind blade flew past it, not harming it at all. Zhao Fu then yelled, "Fireball!" Li Wen silently bit his tongue and forced himself to calm down. This was the first time that Zhao Fu had brought him out to battle, and he had even given him a precious elemental orb and a refined martial soul. Since Zhao Fu valued him so much, how could Li Wen let down Zhao Fu? Ever since he had joined the Qin village, Li Wen had told himself that he was no longer an ordinary villager. In the future, he would follow Zhao Fu and become a general that would expand the Qin kingdom's territory. At first, Li Wen's face had paled when he saw the terrifying skeleton general, but now he had completely calmed down and immediately shot out a fireball. This fireball flew towards the skeleton general, making it difficult for it to dodge. However, facing this fireball, the skeleton general didn't take it to heart and slashed out with its sword. Bang! The fireball was destroyed by the sword, turning into sparks and dissipating. Suddenly, 2 blood-red fireballs flew over from the left and right, landing on the skeleton general's body. Zhao Fu and Old Lo had acted. Bang! A massive explosion sounded out as the 2 blood-red fireballs simultaneously exploded, creating a massive destructive force. However, the skeleton general wasn't sent flying, and it was only forced back a few steps, looking quite wretched. Fire! Zhao Fu gave the order, and the archers raised their bows and shot out arrows. Facing the incoming arrows, the skeleton general knocked them away with a few slashes. Pooh! Zhao Fu found an opening and shot an arrow at the skeleton general's abdomen. The arrow pierced through the armor and hit the skeleton general's waist, causing it to slightly retreat. The skeleton general looked at Zhao Fu with its eerie eyes and gave off a cold killing intent as it turned into a black blur and shot toward Zhao Fu. Clang! Beside Zhao Fu, a figure rushed up and blocked the skeleton general. The 2 swords collided, causing sparks to fly. This figure was Bai Qi, who had been guarding against the skeleton general this entire time. The skeleton general roared and pressed down with its sword towards Bai Qi, causing Bai Qi's expression to become cold. There was still a large gap between his strength and the skeleton general's, but Bai Qi wouldn't admit defeat like this. He gritted his teeth and continued to defend against the skeleton general. Retreat! Zhao Fu's order sounded out from behind him, and Bai Qi unhesitatingly retreated. He completely obeyed Zhao Fu's orders, and just as Bai Qi retreated, the 10 goblin warriors raised their shields and surrounded the skeleton general. The skeleton general was slightly startled, and in the next moment, it prepared to swing its sword and break out of the encirclement. At that moment, 4 fireballs and a wind blade landed. Zhao Fu, Li Wen, Old Log, and Lu Mei had all attacked. Bang! The four magic skills simultaneously exploded, and Old Logue's and Zhao Fu's fireballs were the most powerful. As soon as they exploded, the goblin warriors surrounding the skeleton general were blasted back a step. The skeleton general at the center had received quite a bit of damage, and it wretchedly knelt on one knee and stabbed its sword into the ground. Just as it was about to stand up, the goblin warriors suddenly moved to the side of the encirclement, and arrows flew towards the skeleton general. Roar! After being attacked a few times, the skeleton general loudly roared and vigorously swung its sword. The sword lightly hummed, and 8 arcs of gray sword chi shot out in all directions. Boom! A massive explosion sounded out as the 8 arcs of sword chi tore through the air, forming a storm of sword chi. Not only did the arrows fly towards it, but even the 3 goblin warriors with shields were sent flying. Many sword gashes that were 3 centimeters deep appeared on the shields in their hands. The skeleton general had just used a powerful skill, and it seemed to be quite tired. However, at that moment, pooh. Chapter 31. After the skeleton general died, it dropped 5 items. Zhao Fu slowly walked over and picked up its 2-handed sword. Skeletons usually had better weapons, so he wondered what this skeleton general's weapon was like. Star slashing sword. Grade, gold stats, strength +8, constitution +4, agility +2. Description, a half-legendary grade weapon that has been unable to withstand the corrosion of time and has become an ordinary gold grade weapon. As expected, it did not disappoint Zhao Fu. It was a gold grade weapon. Zhao Fu handed the star slashing sword to Bai Qi. A look of delight appeared on Bai Qi's cold and handsome face, and he respectfully cupped his hands as he said, "Thank you, Your Majesty." Zhao Fu nodded and looked at the skeleton general's armor. White soldier's armor. Grade, silver, stats, strength +2, constitution +4. Description, an exquisite gold grade white soldier's armor that has been unable to withstand the corrosion of time and has become an ordinary silver grade armor. Zhao Fu handed the armor to Bai Qi. Now that Bai Qi had obtained these 2 powerful pieces of equipment, his stats had greatly increased, and his strength had also greatly increased. Every time one's cultivation increased by a stage, all stats would only increase by 1, but just the star slashing sword had increased strength by 8 points. Zhao Fu looked at the next item. This item looked like a soldier's soul, and it was also an orb of light with the image of a general within it. General soul. Description, a powerful soul left behind by a general after his death. It can be fused into a city heart and become a guardian spirit. It can also be fused into weapons to strengthen them. Note, 10 general souls can be fused into a general armament. A general soul was equivalent to 10 soldier souls, which was not bad. Zhao Fu felt quite delighted. He was 1 step closer to a general armament. He wondered what the effects of fusing a general armament would be like. The 4th item was a rectangular stone that was grayish-white and had a smooth surface. Skeleton general, profession change stone. Description, can change a soldier's profession into a skeleton general. It can be used by living people, but there are side effects. Zhao Fu hesitated. First of all, the general profession could only be changed after the village was upgraded to a town. A normal town could only have 1 general. A blue town could have 2 generals, and a legendary town could have 5 generals. General, C- grade military. Description, a general that can lead soldiers. Effect, can change professions to any 2 battle professions. The reason why generals were C- grade soldiers was because they could change professions at will and receive bonuses for both professions. There were no restrictions on these 2 professions. You could change professions to 2 F-grade professions, and, of course, you could change professions to 2 SSS-grade professions. As such, becoming a general was quite rare. However, the skeleton general profession change stone had side effects, and it was possible that the user would turn into a skeleton. Zhao Fu decided not to change his profession into a skeleton general. He did not care much about his appearance, and he would be able to get used to it if he turned into a skeleton. However, Just as Zhao Fu was about to use it, he received a notification that lords could not change their profession into generals. In the end, Zhao Fu could only tell Bai Qi and the others about the profession change stone. Bai Qi was already a general, so Zhao Fu first looked at Lu Mei. She had S grade and had great potential. Facing Zhao Fu's gaze, Lu Mei looked quite unwilling. However, if Zhao Fu ordered her to use it, she could not resist. As such, Lu Mei leaned over to Zhao Fu and hugged Zhao Fu's arm, rubbing her large chest against it as she said coquettishly, "Your Majesty, look at how pretty I am. I'll warm your bed for you." Lu Mei had said this because she could tell that Zhao Fu was not interested in her and would not do anything to her, which was why she was so bold. Her coquettish appearance caused everyone present to feel a chill run down their spines. Everyone already knew how fierce she was. Seeing this, Zhao Fu gave up on having Lu Mei use the profession change stone. It wasn't because she was acting spoiled, but rather because Zhao Fu didn't want his subordinates to do something they weren't willing to do. Just as he was about to put the profession change stone away, he decided to make plans for the future. At this moment, Li Wen, who had been deep in thought, said, "Your Highness, let me use it." Zhao Fu was taken aback and reminded him, "You know that there's a side effect. You might directly turn into a skeleton." Li Wen nodded earnestly as he replied, "I know, Your Majesty, but this subordinate's talent is limited and cannot compare to General Bai Qi. In the future, I won't be able to help Your Majesty much, so I want to use this profession change stone." Hearing this, Zhao Fu looked at Li Wen's serious expression and sighed before handing the profession change stone to Li Wen. Li Wen accepted the profession change stone and chose to use it. Streams of gray aura rose up from the profession change stone and flowed into Li Wen's body. Li Wen's entire body was covered by the gray aura, and after a while, the gray aura dissipated. Li Wen had also gone through great changes. He had become much thinner, and his skin had lost all of its color. His eyes had also become a grayish-white color. There were no other changes. Li Wen had successfully changed his profession, and his expression had returned to normal. He saluted to Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu let out a sigh of relief. Luckily, the side effects weren't too great. He nodded and looked at Li Wen's stats. Name, Li Wen grade. A title, profession, skeleton general, achievement points, commoner race, human, half undead, age, 22-100 loyalty, 90 stats, strength, 9 intelligence, 7 constitution, 8 agility, 6 special power, weak, undead's power, cultivation, stage 0-1 cultivation technique, Qin's inner cultivation technique skills, fireball, basic sword technique, rock crushing arrow, equipment, iron armor, iron sword. There were 2 changes to Li Wen's stats. The first was his race, which had become a half undead, and the second was his undead's power. Undead's power was the same as Zhao Fu's demon's power. It was a power that didn't belong to humans. After Zhao Fu obtained the demon's power, not only did his stats increase, but his normal orange fireballs also had traces of blood-red color and were slightly more powerful than normal fireballs. Zhao Fu looked at the last item that the skeleton general had dropped. It was a bronze command medallion that had some rust on it, and it felt quite cold in his hands. Commander medallion, undead. Description: a commander medallion that has been contaminated by the undead's aura for a long time. It can allow 10 normal class skeleton soldiers to serve you, and the skeleton soldiers can be stored in the commander medallion. This made Zhao Fu feel quite delighted. Even though he could only take in 10 normal grade skeleton soldiers and couldn't take in captain grade skeleton soldiers, this was already quite good. Zhao Fu immediately turned his attention to the skeleton cavalryman. Looking at the goblin warrior's massive shield, Zhao Fu decided to continue onwards. After taking in the 10 skeleton cavalrymen, he would stop here for the day. Following this, Zhao Fu continued to explore. The passageway in front of him gradually became wider, and blue spirit flames lit up. There were 14 skeletons in total, and 4 of them were skeleton cavalrymen. Chapter 32. These 4 skeleton cavalrymen were the first to charge over on their tall skeleton horses. Behind them were skeleton infantrymen, and their momentum was menacing. Facing so many skeletons charging at him, Zhao Fu's expression did not change. He raised the bronze commander's seal, and 4 rays of gray light shot into the skeleton cavalrymen's heads. The skeleton cavalrymen immediately stopped, and the blue spirit flames in their heads flickered before turning around to attack the other skeletons. The other skeleton soldiers felt quite confused. How had they suddenly become enemies? Soon, the skeleton soldiers were all killed by Zhao Fu's group. As they continued to explore, they encountered 3 more waves of skeleton soldiers. Zhao Fu had also subdued 10 skeleton cavalrymen, and he had wanted to go back. However, he suddenly saw a trace of light ahead, which was quite eye-catching in the dark passageway. Zhao Fu could not help but feel curious and continued onwards. Gradually, the passageway became brighter and brighter, and it was almost blinding. Everyone used their hands to block the light and continued onwards. At the end of the passageway, they found that they had arrived at a massive space. This space was 1,000 meters high and more than 30 kilometers in area. What was frightening was that what was terrifying was that this 30 or so kilometer area was completely covered with bones, and it was a sea of bones. There were bones of all sorts of different races: humans, elves, angels, orcs, demons. There were countless races, and Zhao Fu even saw a dragon skeleton that was 1,000 meters long. This dragon was not like the Western dragons that had wings and looked like lizards, but the Eastern dragons that had a snake's body, deer horns, and flashing fish scales. They could fly in the sky without wings. What is this place? Everyone stared at the scene in front of them in shock. At the same time, they felt quite confused and wondered to themselves. At that moment, Zhao Fu saw a massive altar that was 300 meters tall and 10,000 meters wide, and Zhao Fu couldn't help but walk up. "Your Majesty," Bai Qi called out with a serious expression. Hearing this, Zhao Fu nodded. He knew that this place was not simple, but he still decided to go up and take a look. He was not worried that the bones here would become undead. If they could become undead, the Forest of Horrors would no longer exist, as there would not be a single living creature in the Forest of Horrors. Zhao Fu stepped in, and the bones broke apart like rotten wood. They continued onwards, and everyone warily looked around as they slowly advanced. In the end, as expected, everyone arrived at the altar. At this time, everyone could clearly see the true appearance of the altar. This altar seemed to be made of jade stones. They were cyan, and each jade brick seemed to have mysterious runes flowing within it. The entire altar gave off a very mysterious and ancient aura. Zhao Fu stepped onto the jade steps of the altar, but nothing happened. Zhao Fu gave up on the idea that this was a legacy altar, and everyone else also walked up to the top of the altar. There was a massive magic formation engraved on the top of the altar, and there were rows of jade channels around it. There were crystal-like energy stones in the jade channels, and there seemed to be thousands of them. Zhao Fu knew that these energy stones contained a large amount of energy, and each one cost 20 gold coins. Most of the energy stones in the jade channels had been used up, and only around 100 of them still had some energy left. Zhao Fu pressed his hand on the altar and received a set of information. Heaven and Earth Refining Formation. Description: one of the 6 great heaven-defying magic formations. It can refine all things in the world and steal source energy. After seeing this set of information, even Zhao Fu was shocked. One of the 6 great heaven-defying magic formations. Just from a description alone, he could tell that this magic formation was incredibly powerful. It could refine all things and steal source energy. Zhao Fu immediately thought of the piles of bones here, but he wasn't sure what it was. At the same time, because he was standing at a high place, Zhao Fu looked around and found that there wasn't just a single passageway here. There were thousands of passageways like the one that Zhao Fu and his party had come from. Zhao Fu said seriously, "We'll stop here for today. Let's go back. Also, don't tell anyone else about what happened here." Seeing how serious Zhao Fu was, everyone knew how serious this matter was, so they nodded and said, "Yes, Your Majesty." Following this, everyone returned to the ground. "Your Majesty," just as Zhao Fu returned to the ground, Li Si walked over with a look of delight on his face. Zhao Fu looked quite confused as he asked, "What is it, Li Si?" Li Si cupped his hands and replied, "Your Majesty, some outlanders have come to surrender." Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt quite confused. What kind of outlanders would come to surrender? Zhao Fu followed Li Si to an empty area within the village and saw 30 or so gray dwarves. They were around 3 meters tall and had grayish skin. Their limbs were thick and powerful, and they looked no different from ordinary people. These were the gray dwarves with the lowest dwarf bloodline. There were 20 or so male gray dwarves and 10 or so female gray dwarves. There were no elderly gray dwarves, and they looked quite disheveled as if they had traveled a long distance. Their clothes were covered with mud and grass, and many of them were injured. Seeing Li Si bring a young man over, the gray dwarves understood that this young man was the lord of this village. A middle-aged gray dwarf walked over and said, "Guadaraka, system announcement. Do you accept Sauron's effects?" Zhao Fu couldn't understand what the gray dwarf was saying, but it was most likely the dwarf language. Following this, a system announcement sounded out in his mind. Zhao Fu didn't think too much and chose to accept. After hearing that Zhao Fu had accepted the effects, Sauron looked quite delighted and knelt down on one knee. Seeing this, the other gray dwarves also knelt down and said in unison, "We thank our esteemed lord for taking us in. All of you rise." Zhao Fu said to the gray dwarves, and the other gray dwarves all stood up. "Sauron, what happened to all of you? How did you end up like this?" Seeing the gray dwarves in such a pitiful state, Zhao Fu asked in confusion. Hearing Zhao Fu's words, Sauron looked furious and sorrowful as he replied, "Sir Lord, we were villagers from Kaki Village, which is 100 kilometers away. We had a population of 600 or so gray dwarves, but we were attacked by an orc tribe of 5,000 or so people. Countless people died, and we were the only villagers to escape." Orcs? Hearing this name, Zhao Fu was quite shocked. Orcs were a very aggressive race, and they were all strong and powerful. They were also quite violent, and ordinary humans definitely wouldn't be able to defeat orcs. What's more, it was an orc tribe of 5,000 or so people, which made things even more dangerous. However, Zhao Fu didn't panic too much. After all, the orc tribe was 100 kilometers away, so they wouldn't be able to find Qin village for now. However, he couldn't just leave things to chance. As such, Zhao Fu immediately discussed with Bai Qi and the others, while Risi made arrangements for the new gray dwarves. Chapter 33. The 5,000 orc tribe was in the north, and it was most likely an advanced village. After discussing with Bai Qi and the others, they decided to avoid the orcs and not explore the north for now. At the same time, they ordered the villagers to strengthen their defenses and be on guard. Dwarves were born with forging skills, and even though they were gray dwarves, they also had forging skills. With them joining in, the pressure on Wang Dao was greatly reduced, and Zhao Fu could mass-produce equipment. Zhao Fu first repaired the 10 goblin warriors' shields before taking out the commander's seal and releasing the 10 skeleton cavalrymen. This immediately caused a commotion. Zhao Fu planned to create new armor for the skeleton cavalrymen to increase their defenses. These skeleton cavalrymen were actually quite powerful, and if they had a complete set of armor, Zhao Fu would not be able to kill them so easily. At that moment, someone from the scouting party came up and reported, "Your Majesty, we've discovered a goblin village 12 kilometers west of Qin village." Hearing this, Zhao Fu wanted to confirm what he was thinking in the crack, so he once again gathered 300 soldiers and headed west of Qin village. This goblin village was similar to Old Logue's village. There were 300 or so goblins, and 200 or so of them could fight. The village's defenses were also quite weak. The sun was about to set, and it was already evening. Zhao Fu thought about how the goblins were going to split up into teams to hunt, so he immediately split into 4 teams. On the way back from the goblin village, they killed 4 teams of goblins that had gone out to hunt, and the goblin village immediately lost 160 people. By now, the goblin village had not sensed any danger. The sky was gradually darkening, and they were waiting for the teams that had gone out to bring back food. However, they were disappointed. Flaming arrows shot in from outside without any warning, killing many goblins, and flames engulfed the houses. The goblins finally realized that enemies were attacking, and they gathered all of the teams and rushed to the entrance of the village. Zhao Fu saw that there were less than 100 goblins rushing out, so he released 10 skeleton cavalrymen and had them lead the charge. The skeleton cavalrymen spurred on their skeleton horses. Da-da-da. The skeleton horses galloped towards the goblins. Seeing the 10 skeleton cavalrymen charging at them, the goblins felt quite afraid, but for the sake of the village, they mustered up their courage and charged forwards. Puff, puff, puff. The skeleton cavalrymen gripped their spears and charged forwards, piercing through the goblins' chests, causing blood to fly everywhere and stain the ground. The 10 skeleton cavalrymen were like incomparably sharp knives as they pierced into the goblin group. No one could stop them, and they split the goblin village in half. This was how powerful cavalrymen were. Following this, Zhao Fu's infantry shield-bearers rushed up and started a fight with the goblins. The goblins didn't have many people, and they were scared witless by the skeleton cavalrymen, causing their morale to plummet. When Zhao Fu saw that it was about time, he ordered Old Logue to persuade them to surrender. Unsurprisingly, the entire goblin village chose to surrender. By now, there were only 80 or so goblins left in the goblin village, and most of them were elderly, women, and children. Only 10 or so of them could fight, so they had no choice but to surrender. Zhao Fu looked over at the 10 skeleton cavalrymen. After the battle was over, they stopped next to the goblins' corpses. Traces of gray aura rose up from the goblins' corpses and were absorbed by the skeleton cavalrymen. Following this, the skeleton cavalrymen's spirit flames seemed to become slightly stronger. They can evolve through killing. Zhao Fu also noticed this and couldn't help but mutter to himself. Zhao Fu didn't pay too much attention to this. Being able to evolve through killing was a good thing. He walked to the goblin village and chose to conquer it before choosing to relocate. After obtaining 50 achievement points and 201 EXP, Zhao Fu brought the corpses of the goblins back to Qin Village. On the altar in the region of bones, Zhao Fu started to test his hypothesis. He placed a goblin corpse at the center of the magic formation and activated it. The magic formation was activated and gave off waves of light. A formless energy grabbed the goblin corpse and lifted it into the air. The goblin's flesh and blood melted like wax, but it didn't drip down. Instead, it flowed towards the corpse's head. Finally, the goblin's corpse became a skeleton, and a blood-red orb of light floated out of its forehead. The magic formation stopped, and the skeleton fell to the ground, while the blood-red orb of light floated in the air. Zhao Fu walked up and looked at the information. Even with his personality, he couldn't help but laugh as he muttered to himself, "Let's see who can stop the rise of my Qin Empire." F grade. Description: the source of the spirit that steals the fortune of others. After using it, one's grade can be raised to F grade. Even though Zhao Fu had long since guessed that this magic formation could refine corpses, he had never thought that it could refine orbs of light that could directly change a person's grade. Of course, this was only an F grade orb of light, so it wasn't that important. However, if he could obtain a high-grade corpse, such as an S grade, SS grade, or SSS grade corpse, he would be able to raise a person's grade to the same level. Right now, everyone's cultivation didn't seem important, but in the future, it would be the world of high-grade soldiers. As for how to obtain high-grade soldiers, they would need high-grade soldiers. "Your Majesty, what is it?" Bai Qi asked curiously. It was rare for him to see Zhao Fu so happy. Zhao Fu handed the grade orb of light to Bai Qi, and Bai Qi said in shock, "How could there be such a heaven-defying item in this world?" Zhao Fu nodded and remembered that the heaven and earth refining formation was one of the 6 heaven-defying magic formations. He wondered what the other 5 were. For your majesty to be able to obtain such a heaven-defying magic formation, Qin is truly blessed. Thinking about Qin's future, Bai Qi couldn't help but cup his hands and congratulate Zhao Fu. All right, Zhao Fu cut Bai Qi off and said, right now, this is Qin's most important place. It's time to make some preparations. Afterwards, Bai Qi brought 400 people down and listened to Zhao Fu's orders. They dug tunnels and blocked them off. Zhao Fu didn't know where these tunnels led to or if anything would come out. As such, he could only block them off for now and slowly explore them in the future. Zhao Fu's main task for the next few days was this. Afterwards, he left the heaven-awakened world and looked around. He found that the entire world had become quite dangerous, and nations, faiths, and races were clashing with each other. Chapter 34. Right now, the borders of China were filled with the flames of war. The Tsarist Empire was glaring at them from above, and the Vietnamese kingdom was invading from below. On the left, there was the threat of 23 countries from India, and on the right, there was the provocation of Goguryeo, Beech, and Silla. There was also Oda Nobunaga's descendant, Oda Kamaya. The powerful Roman Empire had been revived, and the Holy Church had started to create the Crusader army. It was also said that the legendary king of the West, King Arthur's descendant, Tina Pendragon, had obtained the king's sword. At the same time, the Pharaoh kingdom had been established, and many tribes had started to wildly expand. The entire heaven-awakened world seemed to be in chaos, and there were no restrictions. Some people had different countries, different religions, and different races. The most intense place was the system main cities at the borders, and blood had already started to dye the ground red. Of course, the most chaotic place was China. As the former overlord of the East, China had offended many people in history, and it had been spied on by countless people. Its territory bordered countless countries, so conflict was unavoidable. Zhao Fu looked at a few posts, and they were all about Chinese people being bullied and humiliated. There were even posts in the real world that mocked China for being weak and powerless, causing the real world to be filled with hostility. This completely infuriated the various legatees in China. Zhao's legatee, Zhao Yang, happened to be at the border, and he gathered all of the players and slaughtered 10 villages, gaining a large amount of reputation. Right now, the border was like this. It was either you kill me today, or I kill you tomorrow. It was filled with killing and darkness, and before the game had even begun, the chess pieces had already fallen into chaos. If things were already like this now, then what would happen in the future? Zhao Fu returned to the heaven-awakened world and spent a few days to block off most of the passages in the region of bones. He left a few behind to prepare for future exploration. At the same time, Zhao Fu ordered people to continue to scout around Qin village to see if there were any other villages that he could annex and increase his manpower. He had to do this. The threat of the 5,000 orcs was simply too great. If Qin village was unlucky and was discovered by them, how could Zhao Fu defend against them? After going to the research lab, Zhao Fu saw that there was still no progress on the teleportation channel, so he decided to put it aside for now and research a skill to check corpses. Lords had the ability to check corpses, but that didn't mean that their subjects couldn't. Now that he had obtained the heaven and earth refining formation, this skill was incredibly important. Right after entering the research lab, Bai Shan came over with a look of delight on his face. Your Majesty. Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt quite delighted and ordered people to construct a teleportation channel next to the village hall. This was only a basic teleportation channel, and it could only teleport 2 or 3 people at a time. Zhao Fu would have to continue researching higher-grade teleportation channels. However, this teleportation channel satisfied Zhao Fu's needs. So Zhao Fu asked Bai Shan and the others to research a skill that could examine corpses. Now that he had a teleportation channel, Zhao Fu decided to go to a system main city to have a look. After building a teleportation channel, he would be able to connect to a system main city's teleportation channel and directly teleport to a system main city. Zhao Fu called Bai Qi over and brought the 236 silver coins and a few blue-grade weapons that he had saved up over the past few days. This way, he wouldn't end up in an awkward situation where he didn't have any money. Zhao Fu stood on the teleportation channel and stretched out his hand, and a few options popped up: Holy Light City, Soldier Forest, and Demon Tree City. Zhao Fu thought about it, and he and Bai Qi each put on a black cloak to hide their appearances. Zhao Fu didn't want their appearances to be exposed. As for the city, Zhao Fu thought about the undead in the passageway, so he chose Holy Light City. After a moment of dizziness, Zhao Fu and Bai Qi arrived at a large stage. There were heavy crossbows set up around them, and there were many soldiers standing guard. If anything went wrong, they would be able to immediately shut down the teleportation channel and kill any enemies who tried to invade. After casually looking around, Zhao Fu and Bai Qi arrived at a large street. The street was quite wide, and there were many shops on both sides. There were many people on the street, and it was bustling with activity. What was interesting was that there were all sorts of players setting up stalls, selling all sorts of equipment and skills. Of course, most of them were quite ordinary. Zhao Fu looked around with interest. He didn't plan on doing anything, and he decided to walk around the system main city. As Zhao Fu walked along the street, he found that Holy Light City was incredibly big, and it could rival the great cities of ancient times. It could easily accommodate 1 million people, and it would take a few days to walk around the entire city. Zhao Fu went to the quest posting office. There were 5 stone steels that were 4 meters tall and 2 meters wide, and they displayed quests of different levels from the left and right. The quests were split into 5 levels: easy, normal, hard, extreme, and hell. The normal quests were mainly about finding materials and helping people, while the easy quests could be posted here by paying a copper coin. The first stone steel was surrounded by people, waiting to get a quest. Now, that 1 copper coin was worth $10. Even a few copper coins were worth more than a normal person's salary. As such, many ordinary people spent all of their time in the Heaven Awakened world. The second normal quest, Stone Steel, was also surrounded by many people, and Zhao Fu couldn't squeeze in at all. The third hard quest, Stone Steel, was much less crowded than before. Most of the quests were to kill Outlander leaders or find rare materials. Zhao Fu went to the 5th Hell quest, Stone Steel, and looked at the quests on it with interest. 1. Kill Six-Eyed Flood Dragon. Quest description: the Six-Eyed Flood Dragon is a Lord-grade monster that lives in the depths of the Forest of Horrors. It has terrifying power that can cause people to despair. Rewards: 100,000 merit points and a piece of legendary grade equipment. 2. Kill Orc Khaki. Quest description: Orc Khaki is the lord of a basic city. It is located in the northern part of the Forest of Horrors and has 40,000 orcs. Rewards: 50,000 merit points and a piece of half-legendary grade equipment. 3. Find Saint Origin Fruit. Quest description: the Saint Origin Fruit is a stage 7 spirit herb that can heal all injuries and improve one's constitution. Rewards: 20,000 merit points and a piece of gold grade equipment. The first quest, the Six-Eyed Flood Dragon, was undoubtedly the biggest boss in the Forest of Horrors. Even system main cities wouldn't dare to offend it. So who would be able to complete it? The second quest, Orc Khaki, was evidently impossible. The 40,000 orcs were no weaklings. At the same time, Zhao Fu understood why there weren't any system main cities in the northern part of the Forest of Horrors. There were powerful Outlanders. Chapter 35. After looking through these quests, Zhao Fu decided to go to a shop to buy some things before returning to Qin Village. At that moment, a cry of surprise sounded out from beside him. Zhao Fu turned and saw a very beautiful woman with exquisite facial features and a graceful figure. She wore a light green dress and gave off a gentle aura that made people want to protect her. Her identity was evidently not simple at all, and there were 10 or so people behind her. Some were her bodyguards, and some were from her family. All of them had extraordinary auras. Right now, the Heaven Awakened world was ruled by large families, and ordinary people could not compare to large families at all. On the other side, A pompous-looking young man looked delighted when he saw the woman and called out, "Row air." Following this, he walked over with a few hoodlums to the left of Zhao Fu and Bai Qi. When the woman called Row air saw the pompous-looking young man, she slightly frowned. On the other side, a few hooligans followed the young man over. Seeing the two cloaked people in front of them, they knew that their young master was here, but they still refused to give way. They were infuriated, and as they were used to being domineering, they went up and attacked, yelling, "Scram! You bastards know that our young master is here, yet you're still not giving way? You're seeking death." Bai Qi coldly harumphed. He could endure being insulted, but how could he endure being insulted to Zhao Fu, the future emperor of Qin village? He saw a few hoodlums walk up and try to push Zhao Fu away. Bai Qi directly attacked, sending one of the hoodlums flying 7 or 8 meters with a single punch. He then used a few more moves to beat the other hoodlums half to death. When the pompous-looking young man saw Bai Qi, he turned to look at him in fear and threatened, "I'm the Zhou family's second young master. If you dare to touch me, you'll die a horrible death." Bai Qi kicked the pompous-looking young man away. The surrounding people watched on in shock as the pompous youth was beaten up. However, they were inwardly delighted, as they had often been bullied by him. At the same time, they wondered who those two cloaked people were for them to dare to hit someone from the Zhou family. On the other side, when Zhao Fu saw how ferocious Bai Qi was, he felt quite awkward. He knew that Bai Qi was more suited to leading troops in a battle. However, Zhao Fu felt quite helpless as he did not have many subordinates. Moreover, Bai Qi's stats were quite good, so he could only nurture him as a valiant general for now. If Qin developed in the future, Bai Qi would definitely become a great general. For the pompous young man's words, Zhao Fu guessed that he was most likely from one of the large families in Holy Light City. Moreover, fighting was not allowed within the city, and soon the guards would arrive. The guards were all Stage 1 soldiers, and they could cultivate and become stronger and stronger. Zhao Fu did not want to get into trouble, so he said, "Stop." "Yes, Your Highness." Bai Qi instinctively cupped his fists and obeyed. Ordinary people might not have heard this, but the woman and the other members of the large families were quite shocked. They knew what this meant. Only someone who had obtained a kingdom's legacy could be addressed as Your Highness. Ordinary families could only address him as young master. No wonder they dared to openly beat up someone from the Zhou family. They did not place the Zhou family in their eyes at all. It was likely that the Zhou family would come and apologize later. At that moment, Zhao Fu was about to take Bai Qi and leave. "Sir, can you wait for a moment?" A soft voice suddenly sounded out from behind him. Zhao Fu turned to look at the woman called Roer and asked softly, "What is it?" The woman walked up and smiled as she said, "I am Jiang Ro, a member of the Jiang family. Would it be possible for us to get to know Sir?" Since she knew that this person was someone who had obtained a kingdom's legacy, he definitely had an incredibly noble status and was the next leader of a large family. Ordinary families would definitely try to befriend such a person. Zhao Fu turned to look at Jiang Ro and thought for a moment before saying, "If there's an opportunity in the future, I have some matters to attend to, so I'll be leaving first." Even though he did not like these people, they had treated him with respect, so Zhao Fu politely replied, "Then can you tell me your name?" Jiang Ro was a bit disappointed at Zhao Fu's refusal, but she still wanted to ask about Zhao Fu and see which kingdom's legatee Zhao Fu was. Right now, no matter if it was Holy Light City, Demon Tree City, or Soldier Forest, they were all controlled by a few large families. Now that a family with a kingdom's legacy had appeared, the situation in the Forest of Horrors would once again change. Zhao Fu thought about it and decided not to tell her his name. Instead, he only told her that his surname was Zhao before hurriedly leaving. Afterwards, news of a kingdom's legatee appearing in Holy Light City spread throughout the entire Forest of Horrors. Even though the teleportation channels between system main cities were not connected, player villages had teleportation channels that allowed them to travel to any 3 system main cities. As such, the large families in Soldier Forest and Demon Tree City heard about this as well. Elsewhere, Zhao Fu and Bai Qi arrived at a shop. "Boss, What holy light skills do you have? Seeing that business had arrived, the boss looked delighted and took out 3 skills for Zhao Fu to choose from. The first was the F- grade skill, Holy Light Technique, which was the lowest ranked holy light skill. If used on humans, they would only feel as if they had been hit by a powerful light, but it would burn and expel demons and undead. Price: 20 silver coins. Looking at this, Zhao Fu felt that it was quite expensive. An ordinary F- grade physical skill would only cost 10 or so copper coins, but it cost 20 silver coins, which was equivalent to 2,000 copper coins. It was more than 100 times more expensive. However, after looking at it and seeing that the F-grade skill, Fireball, cost 1 gold coin, Zhao Fu did not want to say anything else. The second was the F- grade skill, Holy Light Bullet. It looked like a fireball, but it had an explosive effect. It was slightly weaker than Fireball, but it dealt more damage to demons and undead. Price: 70 silver coins. The third was the C- grade skill, Holy Church Seal. After using it, a sun-like mark would appear on the palm of the user, and it would deal massive damage to enemies. Price: 30 silver coins. Looking at the price of the third skill, Zhao Fu couldn't help but sigh. Even if a large family used real money to buy copper coins, it would be quite good if they could earn a few thousand copper coins per day. However, this skill cost 30 gold coins, which was equivalent to 300,000 copper coins. Even a large family would not be able to afford it. Zhao Fu could only give up and look at the first and second skills. In the end, Zhao Fu sold 20 holy light techniques and 5 holy light bullets for a total of 750 silver coins. Luckily, Zhao Fu had brought blue-grade equipment, or else he would not have had enough money. After all, Zhao Fu had bought so many skills, and the shop was almost out of stock. Following this, Zhao Fu went to Holy Light City's teleportation channel. Zhao Fu stretched out his hand, and a teleportation option popped up. Only Qin Village was displayed. This was because the other villages' teleportation channels were all hidden. If you chose to make the teleportation channel public, others would directly teleport to your village. Of course, Zhao Fu also chose to hide the teleportation channel. Apart from this, teleporting into a system city was free, but if you used a system city to teleport out, it would cost 20 copper coins. The system would automatically deduct the money, and if you didn't have money, you would not be able to use it. Chapter 36. After returning to Qin Village, Zhao Fu once again gathered the army. This time, there were 5 more people, both men and women, and they all had high intelligence. There were 35 people in total, and of course, these were only soldiers, not including Lu Mei and the others. Zhao Fu first gave the 10 goblin warriors and 10 infantrymen holy light skills. They were at the very front, and with the goblin warriors forming a shield wall, they could hide behind a shield wall while casting holy light skills. As for the archers, because of their casting distance, Zhao Fu did not give them holy light skills. Now that Zhao Fu's archers had used refined martial souls, their archery skills were incredibly sharp. If the skeletons were caught off guard, they would be able to pierce through their heads with arrows. There were also the 5 new soldiers, and Zhao Fu gave them holy light bullets. Now it was time to test the effects. They came to a passageway that was not blocked, and they slowly advanced through the darkness. Soon, 10 or so skeletons revived and raised their weapons as they rushed at Zhao Fu's group. The goblins and infantrymen did not rush and raise their shield walls before casting holy light skills. Rays of blinding white light landed on the skeleton soldiers' bodies, causing white smoke to rise from their bodies as they howled and retreated. Following this, rays of blinding white light landed on their bodies, causing them to once again howl in pain as their battle strength fell by a third. Rays of white light appeared, causing the dark passageway to become as bright as day, and it was so bright that it was almost blinding. At that moment, 5 orbs of white light shot out from behind the shield wall and landed among the retreating skeletons. Bang! 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 The orbs of light landed among the skeletons and exploded, giving off blinding white light. More than half of the skeletons howled in pain before turning into piles of bones. The remaining skeletons did not even have 10% of their battle strength left, and they were killed by a few infantrymen with iron hammers. Now, the skeleton soldiers were no longer a threat, and Zhao Fu's side was suppressing the skeleton soldiers. They continued to advance, easily killing off a few waves of skeleton soldiers. Even when they encountered the captain's skeleton soldiers, they were only able to cause some trouble. Zhao Fu and the others did not even have to attack before they were killed by the skeleton soldiers. Zhao Fu thought for a moment before leaving everything here to Li Wan. He told him to continue exploring and to notify him if he encountered any skeleton generals. Zhao Fu then brought Bai Qi and the others back to the surface to deal with other matters. Now that Zhao Fu had obtained all of the refined martial souls, he was not stingy at all and gave them to his soldiers. Now that he had the heaven and earth refining formation, he did not have to worry about their aptitudes. After returning to the surface, Zhao Fu brought Little Gray and a group of people to personally explore the surroundings, hoping to find some villages that they could annex and increase the number of people in Qin Village. Right now, Zhao Fu's village did not even have 500 soldiers, and they would not be able to defeat the Orc tribe at all. Zhao Fu left behind some soldiers to act as normal defenses while he led 300 soldiers to explore the surroundings. With Little Gray, as long as someone left behind a scent, Little Gray's keen nose would be able to find the village. Now Little Gray crawled on the ground and sniffed along the way. As a former Wolf King, this showed that it was completely loyal to Zhao Fu, and Zhao Fu followed by its side. Oh! Suddenly, Little Gray seemed to smell something and howled a few times before looking at Zhao Fu. Seeing this, Zhao Fu nodded, and Little Gray leapt out, with Zhao Fu yelling as he followed. Following this, the group started to run, following behind Little Gray. They came to a hillside, and there was a village below. This village seemed to be an intermediate village, and it had 600 or so people. However, its defenses were quite weak, and the management was quite chaotic. The houses were built without planning, and there were only a few acres of farmland here and there. It could be seen that the Lord did not have any management skills. As for how to take down this village, Zhao Fu frowned. This village's defenses were quite weak, and there were no other opportunities for them to take advantage of. Poison. They did not eat from the same pot of rice, and they did not go out to hunt in large numbers. As such, it was impossible to take them down one by one. If they directly charged up, they would suffer great losses. Now, they could only wait. Seeing that it was getting dark, they found a hidden place to set up camp and wait to see what they could find the next day. At night, even though there was no moon, the sky was filled with stars. If one stood under a river of stars, it would be quite a beautiful sight. However, Zhao Fu was not in the mood to appreciate the beautiful scenery, and he frowned as he asked, Bai Qi, what do you think of this matter? Hearing this, Bai Qi thought for a moment before replying, if we can't find any openings, we can only wait until 3 or 4 a.m. the next day, when people are at their most tired. This village's defenses are quite weak, so our chances of success are quite high. Hearing this, Zhao Fu nodded. If there was nothing else they could do, they could only attack by force. Early in the morning, the sun gradually rose from the east, signifying the arrival of another day. Zhao Fu woke up early and looked down at the village below. A while later, a muscular, coarse-looking big man holding a large saber and carrying a bow on his back left the village with 10 or so people who were similarly equipped. They seemed to be going out to hunt. Zhao Fu thought about it and immediately gathered his soldiers. Big bro who? Today, we'll definitely bring back a large wild boar and let everyone have a good meal. A young man said happily to the big man. The big man brightly smiled and said, all right, let alone 1 wild boar, even if it's 3, big bro who will help you catch them. Hearing the big man's words, the young man looked at him in admiration and said, I believe in big bro who. You're the most powerful person in our village, and if you can't do it, then no one can. Hearing the young man's words, the big man happily laughed. However, in the next second, His smile faded as he looked around with a serious expression. Seeing how serious the big man was, the young man realized what was going on and asked curiously, "Big bro who? What's wrong?" The big man stared ahead and said in a low voice, "There's an enemy." Hearing the big man's words, the others immediately became wary and gathered together, looking around. However, they could not find anything, and everyone thought that the big man had sensed wrongly, so they turned to look at him. "Sir, there's no need to hide. I've already found you," the big man suddenly yelled. Hearing this, Zhao Fu decided that even though they had not completely entered the encirclement, they would not be able to run away. As such, he and his soldiers revealed themselves. The large man's group looked at the swaying bushes and saw gnomes holding bows, archers, and soldiers appearing, and their faces immediately turned pale with fright. "Sir, who are you? Why are you attacking our great tiger village's people?" Chapter 37. In a world where the strong preyed on the weak, asking him why he was attacking him was a bit of a joke. However, Zhao Fu still replied, "I'm doing this for your village." After saying this, Zhao Fu turned his head and ordered, "Leave a few alive." Just as the archers and crossbowmen were about to fire, the big man's face paled and he hurriedly cried out, "I'm the great tiger village's village chief, Zhang Dao." Hearing this, Zhao Fu felt quite surprised. He had never thought that this big man would be the great tiger village's village chief, so he immediately said, "Stop." Seeing this, Zhang Dao let out a sigh of relief. He had just heard Zhao Fu's words and looked at the well-equipped and ferocious enemies. If they attacked the great tiger village, it would be a disaster. At that moment, Zhao Fu looked at Zhang Dao and thought about what he should do next. He wanted to use this big chess piece to subdue the great tiger village. "Why do you want our village?" Zhang Dao suddenly asked as he looked at Zhao Fu seriously. Zhao Fu did not hide anything and simply replied, "To defend against the 5,000 orcs 100 kilometers away." "What? 5,000 orcs?" Hearing Zhao Fu's words, Zhang Dao and the others were quite shocked. As the original residents of the great tiger village, they understood how terrifying outlanders were. The beastmen normally did not leave any humans alive. If the 5,000 beastman tribes attacked and found the great tiger village, there would not be a single person left alive in the great tiger village. Seeing how well-equipped Zhao Fu's soldiers were, perhaps they really could defend against the orcs. In that case, joining the great tiger village would not be a bad thing. After all, Zhao Fu wasn't very good at management. However, if he joined just like that, wouldn't it seem like the great tiger village had no backbone? After thinking about it, Zhang Dao decided that he wanted to test Zhao Fu's strength and show off his own strength. So he pointed at the person next to Zhao Fu and said, "Our great tiger village won't easily join anyone. That pretty boy next to you seems to be all right. So if he beats me, I'll join your village. If you lose, we'll work together to defend against the beastmen, and you'll have to provide us with equipment." Gigolo. When Zhao Fu heard Zhang Dao's words, he felt quite confused. He turned and saw that the person Zhang Dao was pointing at was Bai Qi, and he couldn't help but laugh. This guy actually called Bai Qi a pretty boy, and he even challenged him to a duel. Isn't he just seeking death? After thinking about it, he decided that it would be beneficial for him to win or lose, so he nodded in agreement. He believed that Bai Qi would definitely win. Zhang Dao put down the bow on his back and drew his large saber. He looked at Bai Qi, who was slowly walking over, and called out, "Pretty boy, be careful. Don't blame me if you get hurt." Hearing the big man's words, those on Zhao Fu's side who knew Zhang Dao's strength observed a moment of silence for him. There was no need to even think about what would happen to Zhang Dao. The duel began. The big man raised his large saber and ferociously slashed towards Bai Qi. Seeing this, Bai Qi's expression remained calm and did not move. Just as the large saber was about to hit him, a sword light flashed. Clang! The sound of metal colliding rang out, and Zhang Dao felt a massive force slam into his saber, causing him to almost lose his grip and send his saber flying. However, in the next second, A cold light flashed as Zhang Dahu saw Bai Chi's sword stabbing toward his throat. He hurriedly raised his large saber to block, but Bai Chi spun around and kicked the big man away. The big man fell to the ground, but he was unwilling to give up and got up again. He rushed at Bai Chi, but he was beaten down again. Zhang Dahu felt quite confused. He was quite confident in his own strength, and if it wasn't for him, the great tiger village would have been destroyed by the Outlanders long ago. Why was it that he looked like a pretty boy today, and why was he so strong? Wait, I admit defeat. A while later, Zhang Da's saber had long since been knocked out of his hand. Bai Chi couldn't be bothered to use his sword anymore, so he punched the big man's face a few times. The big man was hit a few times, and it was incredibly painful. He knew that he had long since lost, so he did not persist and directly admitted defeat. When he heard the big man admit defeat, Bai Chi stopped and returned to Zhao Fu's side. Zhao Fu couldn't help but smile. Zhang Dao had dug a hole for himself and jumped into it. He had even dared to call Bai Chi a pretty boy, and now he was being taught a good lesson. Now that you've lost, do you know what you said before? Zhao Fu held back his laughter as he walked over and said to Zhang Dao. Zhang Dao sighed and knelt on one knee as he cupped his fists and said, "I've lost, and I greet sir." Zhao Fu received a system announcement asking him whether he would accept the Great Tiger Village's surrender. Zhao Fu chose to accept and received 100 achievement points. Zhao Fu looked at Zhang Dao's stats with interest. Name, Zhang Dao grade. SS title, none profession, civilian achievement points, citizen race, human age, 31 100, loyalty, 60 stats, strength, 10, intelligence, 6, constitution, 10, agility, 8, cultivation, stage 0 cultivation technique, none skills, basic saber technique equipment, cloth clothes, cloth shoes, coarse cloth pants. After looking at Zhang Da's stats, Zhao Fu was quite shocked. Zhang Dahu was SS grade and didn't have a cultivation technique. His profession was only a civilian, and he only had one basic skill. However, he didn't look weak at all. If he joined the Qin village and obtained all sorts of bonuses, his strength would increase by many times, and he would become a powerful general. On the other side, the peaceful Great Tiger Village suddenly heard a system announcement in their minds, and the situation immediately became chaotic. Luckily, Zhang Dao hurried back and calmed the villagers down. However, the villagers looked at Zhao Fu's group with fear. This was mainly because Zhao Fu's 300 soldiers weren't just armored soldiers. There were also goblins and gnomes, and they were quite afraid of Outlanders. Zhao Fu went to the Great Tiger Village's village hall and looked at the Great Tiger Village's stats. He was quite disappointed. It was only a normal grade village, and the Great Tiger Village had only recently become an intermediate village. The Great Tiger Village was 15 kilometers away from Qin Village, and Zhao Fu planned to bring all of the Great Tiger Village's residents into Qin Village to fill in the gaps in the population of Qin Village. Relocating Village has received 540 EXP. This was the relocation village that gave the most EXP. After all, this was an intermediate village, and if an intermediate village became a basic village, the relocation village would suffer great losses. However, the Great Tiger Village was quite far away, and if something happened, Qin Village would not be able to react in time. As such, they could only relocate. A few hours later, Zhao Fu brought the large group of people back to Qin Village. When the Great Tiger Village's residents saw how powerful Qin Village was, they felt quite happy. Their safety was guaranteed. This was especially so for Zhang Dahu. When he saw that everything in Qin Village was so orderly and developed, he felt quite awkward. He felt that compared to his Great Tiger Village, his Great Tiger Village was like a dog kennel. Now, 600 people had joined Qin Village, bringing the total population to 1,340. Considering the threat of the orcs, Zhao Fu changed his profession to 300 soldiers, and now, Zhao Fu could lead 600 soldiers. As for Zhang Dahu, Zhao Fu did not mistreat him. He allowed him to change his profession and gave him a refined martial soul, a silver grade saber, and a blue grade armor. Chapter 38. Zhao Fu now had 600 soldiers, and this did not include the soldiers who had killed skeletons in the crevice or the soldiers who had been defending it. In total, they had 720 soldiers. Their strength had greatly increased, but it was still not enough to face the 5,000 orcs. Zhao Fu had, by Qi train, the 300 new soldiers in Qin village for a few days while he continued to explore the Forest of Horrors. Over the next few days, Zhao Fu had explored the 20-kilometer radius around Qin village. He did not find any other villages, but he did find a small iron mine. However, he did not find any other resources, making Zhao Fu feel quite disappointed. After resting in Qin village, he took 600 soldiers and started to explore the 20-kilometer radius around Qin village. Little Gray continued to sniff the ground. After not finding anything over the past few days, Little Gray felt quite pressured, and Zhao Fu followed beside it. Oh! Little Gray suddenly smelled something and gave a low roar to Zhao Fu, waiting for his orders. After hearing Zhao Fu's orders, it immediately ran out. Zhao Fu and his people followed behind it. After running for a while, Zhao Fu felt quite delighted because he had found horse hoof prints on the ground. From the very beginning, Zhao Fu had been looking for horses, and after searching for so long, he had finally found some traces. Zhao Fu excitedly followed behind Little Gray. Finally, they found 10 or so horses on a flat, grassy plain. These horses were tall and powerful, and their bodies were completely black. Even their manes and tails were black, but their eyes were slightly green, making them look quite strange. After looking around, Zhao Fu obtained information about these horses. Black forest horse. Description: a type of horse that lives in forests. It has good stamina and is very good at crossing obstacles. After looking at the black forest horse's information, Zhao Fu felt that it was quite suitable to be used as a war horse. Now it was time to tame it. Zhao Fu thought about it and wanted to use the method of capturing the azure cow, but he found that this method was not suitable. First of all, these horses were treasures. Secondly, the legs of the horses were not as strong as the legs of the oxen. Furthermore, the horses ran very fast when they were startled. If they were to use the same method as the green ox, it would be very easy to cripple them. After thinking about it, he could only use the traditional method, which was to use a rope, mainly around the horse's neck. This method was the most common in the real world, and it was also the best way to protect the horse. However, this required some skill. Seeing that the black forest horses hadn't discovered them, Zhao Fu chose 10 or so soldiers with better skills to practice with. Right now, they could only rely on these 10 or so people. If too many people went, it was very likely that they would be discovered. They could not underestimate any creature. After 10 minutes of training, the 10 or so soldiers held the ropes and lowered their bodies as they slowly approached the horses. The plan had been going quite smoothly, but when it came to throwing the ropes to the horses, things did not go very well. This was because the black forest horses were too alert, and they only managed to catch 8 of them. There were still 7 that had not been caught. Now that the horses were given a fright, they quickly ran to the side. The 8 horses that had been roped also wanted to run, and they were quite strong. They were almost dragging a soldier along with them. Luckily, there were other soldiers who had not been roped in, and they pulled on the ropes in pairs, barely managing to slow down the black forest horses. However, they were still dragged along by the black forest horses. The black forest horses were quite strong, and Zhao Fu immediately ordered the others to help while he rode on Little Gray. Little Gray's body was now as big as a ferocious tiger. It was strong enough to carry Zhao Fu as they ran. Now that they had finally encountered horses, Zhao Fu did not want to let go of any of the black forest horses that had escaped. Zhao Fu rode on Little Gray and hugged its body, and Little Gray's speed was also quite fast. Little Gray's keen nose was able to follow the scent left behind by the black forest horses. A while later, Zhao Fu had Little Gray stop because he heard the neighing of many horses ahead. This caused Zhao Fu to feel quite delighted, and he stealthily went up to take a look. There was a grassy plain that was nearly 6,000 meters wide, and there were roughly 300 or so black forest horses playing and chasing each other. What made Zhao Fu the happiest was that there was a stage made of bricks at the center of the grassy plain. There was a horse-shaped statue on the stage, which was the den immediately. Zhao Fu rode on Little Gray and brought all of the soldiers here. When Bai Chi saw so many black forest horses, he couldn't help but exclaim in delight, "Qin, it's time to form a cavalry." Zhang Dao happily laughed as he said, "I want to find a war horse that belongs to me." However, Zhang Dao's voice was quite loud, and it almost startled the horses. Everyone's gazes fell on him, and Zhang Dao awkwardly scratched his head, indicating that he would be more careful next time. Lu Mei also excitedly came over and said, "I also want to find a horse that belongs to me." Now that they had discovered so many black forest horses, everyone felt quite excited. Now they had to think about how to capture these black forest horses. Even though Zhao Fu had the advantage in numbers, they couldn't just charge out like this. If they charged out like this, the black forest horses would definitely attack, and Zhao Fu's side would be forced to attack. Killing these black forest horses wasn't something that Zhao Fu wanted. Moreover, these 300 black forest horses weren't 300 gray wolves. If such a large group of horses charged out, it would be quite dangerous, and there would definitely be many casualties on Zhao Fu's side. At the bottom of the den, there was a black forest horse that was twice the size of a normal black forest horse. It was completely black and looked quite powerful. There was a small horn that was a few inches long on its head. This was the Black Forest Horse King. Normally, if you controlled the leader, you would be able to control the entire herd. However, the Black Forest Horse King didn't come out at all. There was nothing anyone could do about it. Perhaps Zhao Fu could find a way to lure it out. As he thought about it, he turned his attention to Little Gray and rubbed its head. Little Gray naively didn't notice that Zhao Fu was thinking about it, and it comfortably rubbed against Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu smiled as he said, "Little Gray, why don't you go and provoke the Black Forest Horse King and have it fight with you?" Hearing Zhao Fu's words, Little Gray immediately took a few steps away from Zhao Fu, looking quite unwilling. Even though Little Gray was a Gray Wolf King and was quite powerful, facing off against 300 Black Forest horses was not something that it could do. Hearing Zhao Fu's words, Little Gray immediately took a few steps back, looking quite unwilling. Even though Little Gray was the Gray Wolf King and was quite powerful, facing 300 Black Forest horses by itself was not something that they could win. It was simply seeking death, so Little Gray wasn't stupid enough to do such a thing. "I won't let you get hurt." Seeing this, Zhao Fu lightly laughed and took out a small medicine bottle. He poured out 2 little spirit pills and walked over to feed them to Little Gray before rubbing its head and saying, "Don't worry. If there's any danger, come back. I won't let you get hurt." Little Gray swallowed 2 little spirit pills and thought for a moment before reluctantly agreeing. It then leapt up and ran towards the Black Forest horses from the other side. "Oh, whoa." Chapter 39. As Little Gray howled, the Black Forest horses all stopped and looked at Little Gray. "Oh!" Little Gray howled as it taunted the Black Forest Horse King. Facing Little Gray's provocation, the Black Forest Horse King elegantly stood up and stared at Little Gray as it whinnied. Just as Zhao Fu thought that the plan was about to succeed, the Black Forest Horse King did not move. The Black Forest Horse King did not move, but the 300 or so Black Forest horses seemed to have received an order and charged towards Little Gray. As the 300 or so horses galloped together, the ground seemed to tremble, giving off a shocking aura. Little Gray was given a big fright as it madly ran. Luckily, it had been prepared, or else it would have been trampled into meat paste. After returning to Zhao Fu's side, Little Gray looked incredibly wronged as it howled a few times. Zhao Fu awkwardly smiled and took out a little spirit pill to comfort Little Gray. This time, the plan had failed. Now, he could only think of another way, and Zhao Fu sank into his thoughts. After a while, Zhao Fu once again looked at Little Gray. Facing Zhao Fu's gaze, Little Gray had already fallen for it once, and it immediately tried to run away. Zhao Fu couldn't help but laugh as he grabbed Little Gray's tail and said, "Little Gray, why are you running? Don't worry, you won't have to do anything this time. You can just be the commander." Following this, Zhao Fu told Little Gray about the plan, and after hearing Zhao Fu's words, Little Gray howled a few times to show that it agreed. This was Zhao Fu's plan. Apart from Little Gray, Zhao Fu had also brought 6 ordinary gray wolves. This time, Zhao Fu ordered Little Gray to pretend to attack the Black Forest horses and slowly lure the horses out. Everyone else also made their preparations and formed an encirclement. After everything was prepared, the plan began. Awoo, awoo, awoo. 6 gray wolves charged out of the forest, looking as if they were about to attack. Seeing these gray wolves charge at them, the Black Forest horses didn't put them in their eyes at all. Of course, the 300 or so Black Forest horses wouldn't attack these gray wolves together. Only 20 or so Black Forest horses split off and charged the gray wolves. The gray wolf tactfully turned around and ran. The 20 or so Black Forest horses chased after it, but seeing that it had already run away in fear, they decided to give up and return to the herd. Awoo! Howl! Awoo! The gray wolves stopped and howled before revealing ferocious looks as they turned and charged at the 20 or so Black Forest horses, looking like they were going to bite them to death. Facing these gray wolves' provocation, the 20 or so Black Forest horses once again charged at the gray wolves, vowing to trample them flat. Seeing the Black Forest horses charge at them, the gray wolves turned around and ran, looking extremely cunning. After a while, the Black Forest horses were incredibly fast, and they were filled with fury as they ran at full speed. The gray wolves that had run away were gradually caught up. At that moment, lassos flew out from the bushes and wrapped around the Black Forest horses' necks. After being wrapped around by the lassos, the Black Forest horses panicked and ran to the side, trying to break free from the lassos. However, the soldier who had thrown out the lassos quickly tied them to trees. Suddenly, the 3 Black Forest horses that hadn't been lassoed rushed out and tried to run. In the next second, countless lassos flew out and tightly bound those 2 Black Forest horses. After capturing 20 or so Black Forest horses, Zhao Fu felt quite happy. Now, when the Black Forest horses were completely exhausted, he would be able to tame them. He would continue to use this method. The gray wolves once again howled and rushed out of the forest. The Black Forest horses weren't very intelligent, and after thinking about where the Black Forest horses had gone, another 20 or so of them rushed towards the gray wolves. Another 20 or so Black Forest horses were captured, and after using this method a few times, it was no longer effective. The remaining 100 or so Black Forest horses all became vigilant. They weren't idiots, and after seeing so many Black Forest horses disappear, no matter how stupid they were, a massive howl sounded out as Little Gray once again walked out of the forest. This time, it didn't look as wretched as before, and it instead had a human-like smile on its face, looking quite pleased with itself. The Black Forest Horse King angrily looked at Little Gray, and it understood that it was Little Gray who had caused all of this. Nay! With a long neigh, the Black Forest Horse King charged at Little Gray, determined to trample this despicable wolf to death. Seeing the Black Forest Horse King lead the 100 or so Black Forest horses over, Little Gray also turned and ran, and the Black Forest Horse King chased after it. However, in the next second, a noose flew out and wrapped itself around the Black Forest horses' necks, and the Black Forest Horse King's neck was also wrapped around it, causing the entire Black Forest Horse King to fall into chaos. Nay! The Black Forest Horse King whinnied as it leapt high into the air, and the 5 soldiers holding onto the rope were dragged along by the Black Forest Horse King. Another noose landed on the Black Forest Horse King's neck, and Bai Qi also acted. However, the 5 soldiers and Bai Qi were still dragged along by the Black Forest Horse King. This Black Forest Horse King's strength is so great. Ropes once again flew out and landed on the Black Forest Horse King's neck. The 30 soldiers, Bai Qi and Zhang Dahu, were finally able to stop the Black Forest Horse King. The Black Forest Horse King continued to struggle after being bound by the ropes, and the soldiers also used all of their strength to pull on the ropes. Both sides fell into a stalemate. Zhao Fu did not care about this for now. and he first dealt with the ordinary Black Forest horses before turning his gaze to the Black Forest Horse King. At that moment, the Black Forest Horse King was still vigorously resisting, and Zhao Fu did not panic. After waiting for a few hours, the Black Forest Horse King finally lay on the ground, panting in exhaustion. Only then did Zhao Fu walk up and use taming on it. However, the effects were the same as when he had used taming on Little Gray. The Black Forest Horse King refused to submit. At that moment, Little Gray ran over to Zhao Fu and rubbed against him as if it had a solution. Zhao Fu felt quite curious, but he decided to let it try. Little Gray ran over and roared at the Black Forest Horse King. Zhao Fu did not know what it was trying to say, but the Black Forest Horse King turned its head away, completely ignoring Little Gray. Little Gray ran over and used its paw to vigorously whack the Black Forest Horse King's head a few times. Immediately, the Black Forest Horse King angrily tried to stand up and teach Little Gray a lesson. However, it was a pity that it was completely exhausted and there were many ropes around its neck. As such, it was no match for Little Gray, and its face was scratched by Little Gray, and it had also been bitten a few times. Zhao Fu watched on. This was evidently Little Gray's revenge against the Black Forest Horse King. Zhao Fu smiled and called out to Little Gray. He once again came to the Black Forest Horse King's side and looked at it as he stretched out his hand and said, "This is your last chance. If you don't submit to me, I'll have to kill you." Following this, Zhao Fu used taming, causing a light to cover the Black Forest Horse King's body. The Black Forest Horse King looked at Zhao Fu with its green eyes, as if it was thinking about something. Chapter 40. System Announcement. You have successfully tamed the Black Forest Horse King. System Announcement. You have subdued a commander-grade creature and obtained 50 achievement points. In the end, the Black Forest Horse King chose to submit, and Zhao Fu was quite happy to have successfully tamed it. He looked at the Black Forest Horse King's stats. Black Forest Horse King, Chief, Level, Stage 4-4 grade. S stats, Strength, 10 Intelligence, 9 Agility, 21 Constitution, 14 Skills. Horse King's Might, causes all normal grade horses to feel fear and submit. Nightmare Walk, runs at high speeds after use. After looking at its stats, Zhao Fu felt that the Black Forest Horse King's stats were only a bit different from Little Gray's. He had his people loosen the rope around its neck, and after hearing that the Black Forest Horse King had been tamed, everyone felt quite delighted and went to pick their favorite horses. Zhao Fu went to the Black Forest Horse Den by himself and touched the horse-shaped statue floating in the air, receiving a set of information. Den Black Forest Horse, Basic Grade. White Description, the den of Black Forest horses. Can spawn 2 to 5 Black Forest horses every day. After looking at the information, Zhao Fu felt that if nothing unexpected happened, the Black Forest horses would become Qin's main war horses, and they would follow in Qin's footsteps and sweep across the world. After choosing to conquer the Black Forest Horse Den and relocate, Zhao Fu received 50 achievement points and 140 XP. Now, Zhao Fu had 463 achievement points, and he was 37 achievement points away from becoming a sovereign citizen. The matter with the Black Forest horses had been perfectly concluded, and Zhao Fu had subdued 324 Black Forest horses. Out of the 600 soldiers that Zhao Fu had, he chose 200 of them to become cavalrymen. Now that Qin village had become an intermediate village, it spawned between 24 to 29 people every day. Zhao Fu decided not to add cavalrymen, but to expand the other 3 military professions and maintain a certain proportion of each military profession. Just like before, after taking care of matters in the Heaven-Awakened world, Zhao Fu returned to the real world. He wanted to boil some water and make a bowl of instant noodles, but suddenly, someone knocked on his door. Zhao Fu felt quite surprised and opened the door to take a look. There were a few people standing outside, 1 woman and 4 men. The woman was wearing a suit and a short skirt, and she wore glasses. She was holding a document and looked quite good-looking. The 4 men were also wearing suits, and they gave off powerful auras, making it seem like they were not ordinary people. As soon as Zhao Fu opened the door, he felt quite wary and asked, Zhao Fu, Zhao Fu, Ji Qin and family, Forest, Zhao Fu smiled and introduced. Zhao, Ji, Fu said Forest King. My name is Ji Qin, and I'm an employee of the Ying family group. Are you Zhao Miling's son, Zhao Fu? After hearing this, Ji Qin said, Mr. Zhao, you have the Ying family's bloodline. According to the Ying family group's orders, we would like to invite you to return to the Ying family. Don't worry, we won't harm you, as this is a good thing. You don't have to do anything in the Ying family, and we'll provide you with a better life. After hearing Ji Qin's words, Zhao Fu immediately realized something. Now, all of the large families had taken back their bloodlines. After all, they were all from the same family, and having the same bloodline would be of great help in the future. It would also solidify a massive group. For the Ying family group to come to him, it was most likely that the people from Zhao Fu's mother's family had gone to reunite with the Ying family. Zhao Fu's maternal grandparents, as well as their relatives, most likely all had the Ying family's bloodline. Now that everyone had entered the Heaven Awakened world, there had been a bloodline announcement, and the Ying family had offered such generous benefits. As such, the fact that they had gone to reunite with the Ying family had been exposed. By now, Zhao Fu had thought things through, and his expression became calm as he refused. No need. I'm doing quite well by myself. After hearing Zhao Fu's reply, Ji Qin once again smiled, but her attitude became much more domineering as she said, Apologies, Mr. Zhao. This is an order from the Ying family group that all people with the Ying family's bloodline must reunite with the Ying family. Zhao Fu frowned. This was simply too domineering, forcing people to acknowledge their ancestors. However, after thinking about it, Zhao Fu realized that after not being able to find Great Qin's legatee for so long, he had gone crazy. Perhaps he was using this method to find a legatee. Now, Zhao Fu only had two choices. One was to follow them back to the Ying family, and the other was to escape. The second method might not work. If he ran away, then he would be very suspicious. Also, with his skills, he would not be able to hide from the search of a large family. In the end, he would still be caught by them. Rather than that, he might as well choose the first method. As such, Zhao Fu cooperated and nodded, saying, All right, can you wait for me for a moment? I'll pack my things. Seeing that Zhao Fu was so cooperative, Ji Qin gave a friendly smile and nodded. After returning to his room, Zhao Fu looked around and felt that he didn't have much to take with him. He picked up a bag, put a few clothes, and the Heaven Awakening stone before leaving with Ji Qin. Within the Li family's villa, the butler had been paying attention to Zhao Fu this entire time. As such, as soon as Zhao Fu had been taken away by the Ying family, the butler had received the news and reported it to the Li family's patriarch, Li Feng. When he heard this, Li Feng felt quite angry, but he heavily sighed as he said, I never thought that he would have the Ying family's bloodline. If I had known about this, it wouldn't have been a bad thing for Zhe to marry him back then. Perhaps he would have been able to obtain an opportunity to cooperate with the Ying family. Now, Li Feng's gaze became icy. With that bastard's temperament and abilities, he would definitely be able to obtain a good position in the Ying family. Now, Zhao Fu had started to give off an aura that could threaten the Li family. Rather than setting traps for the Li family and hindering their development, as well as doing things that would harm their precious grandson, the future ruler of the Great Tang Empire, the Li family could only kill him now to prevent any future problems. Of course, if they killed Zhao Fu now, they might offend the Ying family. As such, Li Feng's expression became serious as he said to the butler, Leave this matter to someone else, but don't reveal any information about the Li family. Otherwise, it will cause a lot of trouble. Even though the Ying family hasn't found a legatee yet, they're one of the 5 great clans, and they're not to be trifled with. The butler nodded seriously and obeyed Li Feng's orders to find an assassin to kill Zhao Fu. Elsewhere, Zhao Fu was completely shocked by how powerful the Ying family was, and he took a private jet with a few of the Ying family's bloodline to the Ying family's headquarters, Nankou City. Chapter 41. A few hours later, they took a private jet to Nankou City. There was a special car that took Zhao Fu and the others to a high-class district. This high-class district was one of the Ying family's properties. Not only did it have great scenery, but it also had good security. There were thousands of people living there, and all of them had the Ying family's bloodline. Of course, they weren't the true descendants of the Ying family, and the true descendants of the Ying family lived in high-class places. It was here that Zhao Fu met his maternal grandparents. They hugged him and cried, and he asked them why they weren't going back to their home. Seeing his maternal grandparents, Zhao Fu felt quite happy. As for why he didn't go back to their home, it was because he didn't want to become someone's burden. They were quite old. As for his other relatives, they were quite unfamiliar with Zhao Fu, and they treated him quite coldly. As such, Zhao Fu wasn't interested in interacting with them. Afterwards, Zhao Fu was given a house that was 100 or so square meters. It was quite luxurious, and it had all sorts of basic appliances and furniture. It was evident that the Ying family was quite wealthy. Zhao Fu turned on a brand new computer and habitually went to the Heaven Awakened World Forum to look at other news. Right now, the other factions were developing quite slowly, and establishing a massive foundation was not something that could be achieved overnight. It was something that had to be accumulated over time. However, because there were no connections between regions, many of the large families were spread out. As such, they formed guild-like factions to recruit ordinary people. Of course, these ordinary people couldn't be controlled by the military, and no one would be willing to risk their lives for them. Moreover, after these players died, their punishments were quite severe. Their levels and equipment would all be reset, and they wouldn't be able to log in for 10 days. The next time they entered the Heaven Awakened world, non-Lord class players would respawn at random. In other words, if they died, they would respawn somewhere else. Generally speaking, guild players weren't very useful. It was rare for them to become elites and be nurtured by the large families. Apart from these large families, one could not look down on ordinary people. It was not just the large families that were ambitious. Chaotic times were when heroes were born, and nobles, and generals all had guts. Apart from some of the large families' disciples, some ordinary people without any family background also flashed with light and stood out from the sea of people. Gu Jun led hundreds of players to conquer a stronghold with 1,000 people. Lu Xiaoming led hundreds of people to conquer 3 outlander villages. Jiang Changshui received the unanimous approval of the villagers and became the village chief of 3 River Village, gaining 600 villagers. After looking through all of this, Zhao Fu once again returned to the Heaven Awakened world. Compared to the real world, Zhao Fu felt more at home in the Heaven Awakened world. After returning to the Heaven Awakened world, Zhao Fu thought about the information he had read on the Heaven Awakened World Forum and felt quite pressured. He felt that he could not be careless at all, and he started to conduct a census. Currently, Qin Village had 1,340 residents, and Zhao Fu had 4 human villages, 3 goblin villages, and 1 gnome village. After a few days of development, the villages gradually regained their population. The 4 human villages now had 524 residents. The 3 goblin villages had 410 goblins, and the gnome village had 189 residents. Zhao Fu recruited some more people from these villages and incorporated them into Qin's army. Now, there were 930 Qin soldiers, 150 goblins, and 100 gnomes, for a total of 1,180 soldiers. In actuality, apart from the human race, other races could also become Qin soldiers. After all, there was no limit to the number of Qin soldiers that could change professions. It was just that each village had a limit to the types of soldiers that could change professions, and the extra soldiers would not receive any bonuses from the village. As such, the 1,180 soldiers could all be called Qin soldiers, and they all received bonuses from their professions. 35 of them were sent to explore the region within the region of bones, while 245 were sent to protect the village. Now, Zhao Fu could lead 900 soldiers. Leading these 900 soldiers, Zhao Fu continued to explore the region 20 kilometers away from Qin Village. Now that they had the Black Forest horses, it was much more convenient. However, only a few people could ride horses, and most of the soldiers still walked. After all, there were only so many Black Forest horses. Right now, Zhao Fu was riding on Little Black, the Black Forest Horse King. He walked in front while Little Gray sniffed the air beside him. Suddenly, Little Gray had gained something again, and it roared before running forwards. Zhao Fu rode on Little Black and chased after it. A while later, they found an intermediate village on a flat piece of land. This village belonged to an outlander race, and there were creatures that had dog-like heads and human-like bodies. They looked very similar to the human-like creatures of Western legends, the kobolds. This kobold village had roughly 1,000 kobolds. Roughly 700 of them were kobold warriors, and the remaining 300 were elderly, women, and children. Apart from most of the kobold warriors holding sabers, there were also some kobolds holding spears. Zhao Fu didn't dare to get too close to observe. After all, the kobolds' noses were as sensitive as a dog's. Right now, 1,000 kobolds was quite a lot, and if he had 500 or 600 more, he would be able to take them down in one fell swoop at night. What should we do now? Suddenly, Zhao Fu thought of something and turned his gaze towards Little Gray. Little Gray, who had been resting by the side after completing its search, instinctively shivered. It turned its head to look at Zhao Fu, who seemed to be up to no good. Immediately, Little Gray wanted to slip away. This time, Zhao Fu did not make a move. Little Black directly bit Little Gray's tail. The last time Little Black was bullied by Little Gray, it was even bitten a few times. How could it let go of this opportunity? Little Gray turned its head and growled a few times. It means to tell Little Black to let go. It knows that its despicable master is definitely up to no good when he looks at it. Little Black also called out a few times. Its horse face smiled, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. What it meant was, hee, in any case, you're the one being cheated. It's none of my business. I want to be a good baby that listens to my master. Immediately, Xiao Hui cannot take it anymore. It turned around and wanted to bite Xiao He, this flattering villain, but Xiao He bit Xiao Hui's tail and dodged to the side. Zhao Fu looked at the wolf and horse fighting and could not help but chuckle. All right, let's both stop. In actuality, Zhao Fu did not pay much attention to Little Gray, and he just wanted to use it as a reference. Little Gray's nose was very sensitive, which was an advantage. However, sometimes an advantage could become a disadvantage if used properly. For example, the kobolds' noses were also very sensitive, so how could he use this advantage? Thinking about that, Zhao Fu brought his people back to Qin village to avoid alerting the kobolds. Chapter 42. After coming close to the kobold village, Zhao Fu made preparations for everyone. Everyone covered their noses and mouths with a piece of cloth to prevent themselves from being injured. In order to convince the kobold village to surrender, Zhao Fu ordered his soldiers to capture a kobold and use heavy torture to force him to surrender. Following this, the soldiers got into formation and walked towards the kobold village. Before Zhao Fu and his soldiers even appeared, everyone in the kobold village was on guard because they could smell a large number of enemies approaching. A while later, Zhao Fu and his 900 soldiers came to the front of the kobold village. All of the kobold village's kobolds were holding weapons, and both sides faced off against each other. Zhao Fu did not attack, and the kobold village did not dare to attack either. After all, Zhao Fu's soldiers had already reached 900, while the kobold village only had around 1,000 people. If Zhao Fu attacked, the kobold village would suffer countless casualties. I don't want to kill too much, so all of you should surrender. I'll treat you like my subjects. Zhao Fu rode on Little Black's back and yelled at the kobolds. After yelling, Zhao Fu gestured for the kobold next to him to translate. Chirp, 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 chirp. The kobold village's language sounded like a mouse's squeak, and after the kobold on Zhao Fu's side translated, a kobold who seemed to be the leader of the kobold village stepped out and said a bunch of things. Zhao Fu could not understand, so he turned to look at the kobold next to him. The kobold next to him immediately translated. The leader of the kobolds says, "Humans, go back. We kobolds won't easily submit to anyone." Hearing this, Zhao Fu remained expressionless. He had long since expected this, so he did not hold back and gave the order to use their secret weapons. The shield-bearers raised their shields, and the archers raised their bows. All of the arrows had a cloth bag tied to them. The cloth bag was not very dense, so it was naturally filled with chili powder. With a slight shake, the chili powder would leak out. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Arrows flew out, bringing with them traces of red powder as they flew towards the kobolds. Not a single one of the arrows hit the kobolds, and instead flew high above their heads, scattering down the chili powder. Now, all of the kobolds were covered by the red powder. When the kobold chieftain saw Zhao Fu attack, it wanted to have the kobold spear throwers attack. However, in the next instant, after inhaling the pepper powder, they felt a burning pain in their noses as if they were being burned. All of the kobold chieftains desperately coughed, and tears flowed out of their eyes. With so much pepper powder, even a normal person would choke to death if they smelled it. That was why Zhao Fu had ordered all of his soldiers to cover their mouths and noses. In fact, Zhao Fu hadn't even brought Little Gray this time, let alone these kobolds, who had a keen sense of smell. Seeing this scene in the kobold village, Zhao Fu did not stop and once again gave the order to throw even more pepper powder at the kobold village. Countless traces of red pepper powder covered the kobold chieftains like a dense fog. Now, no one in the kobold village could stand. All of them covered their noses and howled on the ground, and more tears flowed out of their eyes. It was as if they had been hit by a biological weapon. However, the pepper powder was indeed a biological weapon to the kobolds. Seeing this scene, Zhao Fu gave a trace of a smile and gave the order to capture all of the kobolds who were unable to resist. In the end, Bai Qi and Zhang Dahu tied up the kobold chieftain and brought him in front of Zhao Fu. Only after a few buckets of cold water were poured on his head did he feel a bit better. After recovering from the pain of having his nose cut off, he furiously glared at Zhao Fu and continuously howled. Zhao Fu rode on Little Black and looked down at the kobold chieftain. He could not understand what he was saying, so he looked at the kobold chieftain, who had already submitted. The kobold translated fearfully, "Sir, the leader says that you're too despicable and that you don't dare to face him head-on. Instead, you use such shameless methods, and he feels ashamed for you." When Zhao Fu heard his words, he couldn't help but laugh. "Your Highness, I'll teach him a lesson for you." Although the others could not understand what the kobold leader was saying, they could feel that the kobold leader was scolding Zhao Fu. Lu Mei, who had a tendency to abuse others, rode over on her horse and asked Zhao Fu for permission. Zhao Fu nodded in agreement, and then he rode Little Black towards the kobold village. After receiving Zhao Fu's order, Lu Mei charmingly smiled. She looked at the kobold chieftain and slowly pulled out her whip. After arriving at the kobold village, Zhao Fu entered the kobold barracks and found 2 profession-changed stone steels there. He stretched out his hand and looked at them. Kobold warrior, F-grade military, description, warriors among the kobold chieftains, effect, receives kobold saber technique. Kobold spear thrower, F-grade military, description, spear throwers among the kobold chieftains, effect, receives projectile. What surprised Zhao Fu was that the kobold spear thrower was not a special profession, and there was no limit to how many professions it could be changed to. After looking at the barracks, Zhao Fu went to look at the other places, but he did not find anything unexpected. At this moment, the kobold chieftain could no longer endure the abuse from Lu Mei, and it surrendered to Zhao Fu. System announcement. Kobold Doke has surrendered to you. Do you accept? Zhao Fu chose to accept and walked into the kobold village hall. He chose to conquer it and received 100 achievement points. Zhao Fu's status once again rose from citizen to noble, and he now required 1,000 achievement points to level up from noble to 3rd-rank baron. Zhao Fu looked at the kobold village's stats. Village name, Doke Village, Blue. Level, Intermediate Village Area. 3 square kilometers village territory. 15 square kilometers popular support. 78 special stats. Territory crop output plus 8%. Territory crop growth time minus 8%. Population limit plus 2% subsidiary village limit. 2 inches terms of stats. It was much better than a normal village, but it still couldn't compare to Qin village. Zhao Fu searched for relocate and obtained 540 EXP. Because an intermediate village requires 5,000 EXP to level up, relocating and destroying an intermediate village will give bonus EXP. As such, Zhao Fu obtained 540 EXP instead of 40. He had obtained 1,000 pieces of normal equipment and 8,000 copper coins. However, these were not important. The most important thing was that he had obtained 1,000 people. Now that these 1,000 kobolds had joined, Qin village would have the power to protect itself against the 5,000 orcs. This was the most important thing. Zhao Fu first selected 500 kobolds, 300 of which were kobold warriors and 200 kobold spear throwers. Now that Great Qin had 1,400 soldiers, their strength had once again greatly increased. This caused Zhao Fu to change his strategy, which was to take as long as possible in order to increase the number of people. Right now, no matter what faction it was, population was what they lacked the most. Chapter 43. Also, the kobold chief Doke had become one of Zhao Fu's generals. Zhao Fu looked at his grade and found that he was S grade, and his weapon was a large saber. Zhao Fu didn't lack saber-type weapons, so he directly gave him a silver grade saber. Because Doke had been viciously beaten up by Lu Mei, it had left a deep shadow in his heart. Every time he saw Lu Mei, he would have to take a detour. Zhao Fu didn't know what method Lu Mei had used, but when he had returned, he had seen Doke lying on the ground, covered with wounds. Now, the Qin village's main task was to continue exploring. Bringing Little Gray was undoubtedly the wisest choice. With its nose, it would be the fastest way to find other outlanders and creatures. This time, Little Gray continued to sniff, and Zhao Fu rode behind on Little Black. Suddenly, Little Gray found something, and it looked up with a serious expression before turning to Zhao Fu and barking a few times, indicating that there was a very powerful creature ahead. Zhao Fu understood and nodded before reminding his subordinates to be more careful. Roar! Following this, the group continued onwards. Suddenly, a massive tiger's roar sounded out as a ferocious tiger as big as a cow walked out. Its fur was snow white, and there wasn't a single blemish on its body, and it gave off traces of an icy aura. Iceborn Tiger. Ice-type chief creature seeing the Iceborn Tiger run out, Zhao Fu immediately gave the order to attack. Arrows flew out, but in the next second, an ice wall appeared in front of the Iceborn Tiger, blocking most of the arrows. However, a few soldiers with refined martial souls were able to pierce through the ice wall, but with the ice wall blocking them, the Iceborn Tiger was able to easily dodge them. Seeing so many people, even though the Iceborn Tiger wasn't weak, wasn't stupid, it knew that it would lose, so it chose to run. Seeing that the Iceborn Tiger was about to run, Zhao Fu immediately gave the order for the kobold spear throwers to attack. In order to develop the spear throwers, Zhao Fu specially prepared 10 iron-tipped javelins for each kobold spear thrower and gave them a bag to carry on their backs. This was to avoid the awkward situation of having no weapons after throwing their weapons. The power of 200 kobolds throwing javelins at the same time was terrifying. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The sound of something tearing through the air rang out with terrifying momentum. It was as if a forest of spears had enveloped the Ice Tiger. Faced with so many javelins, the Frost Tiger immediately released an ice wall. However, it was unable to block all of the javelins, and another 7 or 8 javelins hit the Frost Tiger. Because the Glacial Tiger was a commander-tier creature, it had a strong defense. The javelin had only pierced the Glacial Tiger's body, but it hadn't caused any fatal damage. The intense pain caused the Ice Tiger to lose its mind. It jumped out and opened its huge mouth. Roar! With a roar, an ice bullet the size of a wash basin shot out towards Zhao Fu's group. The shield-bearer immediately raised his shield in front of him. Bang! A massive explosion sounded out as the ice bullets slammed into the shields and exploded, forcing a few of the shield-bearers back a step, and white frost appeared on their shields. Zhao Fu's expression didn't change at all, and he ordered the archers to attack. Arrows shot out, and the glacial tiger quickly dodged, but it was still hit by many arrows. By now, the glacial tiger's body was covered with arrows, but it still furiously rushed over. Bai Qi, Zhangde, Dok, Old Log, and Lu Mei went up to meet it and unleashed their various skills. Old Log's first 2 blood-red fireballs flew towards the glacial tiger. The glacial tiger dodged to the left, avoiding Old Log's attack. However, in the next second, Lu Mei's wind blade hit it, leaving a gash on its body. Roar! The glacial tiger roared in pain. At that moment, Zhang Dahu and Dok attacked from the left and right. The glacial tiger raised its claws and clawed at the 2 of them, but the 2 of them dodged to the side. Not only did they avoid the glacial tiger's claws, but they also slashed at its sides. The glacial tiger furiously turned its head and bit at Dok. Suddenly, a sword light flashed, and a large amount of blood spurted out as Bai Qi's final strike slashed the glacial tiger's throat. From start to finish, Zhao Fu didn't do anything. He sat on Little Black's back and didn't move at all, calmly watching his subordinates kill the glacial tiger. The best way to show off a lord was to sit at the back and act cool as he watched his subordinates beat up their enemies. System announcement. Your general has killed a chief-grade magic beast, Glacial Tiger, and obtained 27 achievement points. System announcement. You have obtained 23 achievement points. After the Glacial Tiger was killed, it dropped 100 or so silver coins and 3 items. The first item Zhao Fu recognized was a cube that gave off a blue light. This was a city creation stone, and after using it, it could be used to establish a village. In actuality, killing an elite grade magic beast had a chance of dropping a white grade city creation stone, a chief grade magic beast had a chance of dropping a blue grade city creation stone, and a lord grade magic beast had a chance of dropping a silver grade city creation stone. City creation stones obtained from killing magic beasts didn't have any race restrictions, so anyone could use them. After using them, the user's race would be refreshed. After putting away the city creation stone, the second item was an orb of light that gave off a chilling aura, which Zhao Fu recognized. Innate Elemental Orb Description obtains the D-grade skill Ice Explosion Bullet. Ice Explosion Bullet was most likely the skill that the Glacial Tiger had used before. Zhao Fu thought about it and found that the only ones who didn't have any magic skills were Bai Qi, Zhang Dehu, and Dok. Because Bai Qi specialized in swordsmanship, Zhao Fu decided to give the innate elemental orb to Zhang Dao. Zhang Dao happily received the innate elemental orb and thanked Zhao Fu before using it, causing Dok, who had just joined, to feel a bit envious. The third item was something that Zhao Fu didn't recognize. It was an irregularly shaped stone that gave off traces of chilling aura. Ice Strengthening Stone. Description: an Ice-type strengthening stone that can strengthen all equipment and give Ice-type damage bonuses or Ice-type defense bonuses. After looking at this information, Zhao Fu said, "Bai Qi, give me your sword. Give me your sword." Hearing this, Bai Qi didn't hesitate and handed his gold-grade star slashing sword to Zhao Fu. Zhao Fu took the star slashing sword and placed the strengthening stone on it. The strengthening stone turned into an icy mist that wrapped around the star slashing sword, and the icy mist slowly fused into the sword. The star slashing sword also went through some changes. It seemed to be covered in a layer of ice, and it felt quite cold in Zhao Fu's hands. Zhao Fu once again looked at the star slashing sword stats. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.